Black Viking. Returning challenger, Mav.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Pixelated Echoes. We are now on episode 5. Glad everyone can hop into the chat. As you guys might have seen in the intro, we do have 2 awesome challengers here today entering the Pixel Kingdom. So first off, it's a pleasure to have the both of you here to make it to the show today. I'm sure it's going to be a great one. Everyone in the chat and our audio listeners and to our people listening in the future. It's always appreciated, you guys dropping on by, supporting the show. Me and Fuzzy, man, me and Fuzzy do quite a bit behind the scenes to bring some great conversations to you guys. But before I jump into any topic of conversation, hello everybody in the chat. And I always want to know what you guys are playing. I always bring that to the guests before we start anything, sort of as an ease conversation. What are you guys up to? Lately I've been playing NBA 2K, going through the season, my player mode, with my created character. I tried scanning my face into that mode and he looked like a chipmunk. So I feel like the scanning feature was a bit better last year. Other than that, I haven't had time to game a lot this week. Been working. I've been playing a ton of pickleball, so that's been pretty fun. But yeah, let's get into our special guests for this episode. Now, this man, he sailed the 7 seas. He had an axe in one hand and a controller in the other. His shades hides his eyeballs, which contains the secret map to Narnia, possibly. He plundered realms. But instead of burning villages today, he decided to grace us with his presence. The one and only Black Viking. How you doing today?
Hey,
what you playing?
I'm gonna need that intro on every show I go on to. That was heat. Hey, first of all, that intro was nuts. That was, like, not the one you gave me. Like your podcast intro was crazy.
Thank you.
That shit was tight. I forgot that. Ground rules here: cursing, not cursing, PG. Not
go for it.
Okay, shit, that shit was flames. It was great. I love it.
Thank you.
I think that's the best one I've ever seen, bro. That shit was cool.
Thank you.
But what I've been playing, man, is just Unicorn Overlord. Until Dragon Dogma 2 comes out next week, it's game of the year. So far, like
my man, yes sir, let's go.
Love that game. Mav, they did not have to do that to Scarlet. She looked like Angela White on the screen, pixelated.
Yeah,
I was like, why are those things moving like that? That's crazy. Oh, but it's such a good game. I'd love it. But yeah, that's what I've been playing.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah, people keep telling me about that game. I definitely gotta check that game out, man.
If it had a cooler name, everybody would have tried it out. It's just,
Unicorn
the name,
that's a cool name.
It's okay,
but it's like Metallica, kind of.
Rhinoceros Overlord.
Right?
Yeah.
Something. Pegasus Overlord, something.
Yeah.
Unicorn Overlord, just, I was even shocked. Like, I saw it during, I forgot what showcase that was. I saw it. And I was like, oh, this is right down my alley. And then that name popped up. I was like, what kind of name is that? But I was like, I'm playing it because of the mechanics, you know what I mean? So it's all good.
For sure. Now, giddy up, partners. Saddle up as we mosey through the wild west of the podcast sphere. Hide your animal crackers, because this man will lasso it away. Coming from the Lone Star State, this man is the owner of the Funspeculation channel, where he has a barn of several shows, including Xbox Ultimate, PM in the PM, and FSP, which I'm a part of. And he has graced us for a wild ride into the pixelated Echo Town. Put him up. for the Mav. How you doing today? What are you playing, man?
What the hell was that, 3-bit? Hey, howdy, partners. It's me,
Howdy,
Mav.
partner.
I'm here from Funspeculation Town, get ready to ride on this podcast.
You have to
Let's
mix it
go.
up.
Hey, everybody. Yeah, I just been playing that there Unicorn Overlord there, you know, that there game. Unicorn Overlord, man. Like Black Viking, dude, first off, it's awesome to be finally here on a show with you, because we've hit each other up on the DMs and stuff occasionally, tried to like make things work at times and just never been able to actually get on a show together. So here, 3-bit made it happen for us. He reached out today and said, hey, come on over, Mav. And I said, I can't. Then I was like, later, I was like, hey, 3-bit, I can now. So it all ended up working out. And
It's beautiful.
we're here together now, man. So it's awesome. Fuzzy and 3-bit, my bros, always great hanging out with you. And we got a lot to talk about, man. But the Unicorn Overlord, I think, is a special game. It is a kind of an instant classic for me. It harks back to the old school days of playing games like Final Fantasy Tactics and stuff like that, but it achieves it in such a like masterful way. Like gives you that feeling that I haven't had in one of these tactic style like JRPGs in forever, man. So it is absolutely brilliant game. It's not like going to be for everybody, right? But if you are into strategy games, if you're into tactics games, if you like stuff like JRPGs at all, then I definitely recommend giving it a go. And you don't have to spend the whole $60 to dive right in right away, because there's a demo you can check out to see if it's for you. But yeah, it's a special game. It's going to be one of those classics that I remember forever, probably. Besides that, I've just been playing Balatro. Me and my wife are both hooked on that.
Is that card? That's a card game, right?
Yeah, I've always been a big Texas Hold'em player. You know, Texas Hold'em here. I've always been into Texas Hold'em and poker and stuff for a very, very long time. And this game is like a roguelite / poker game, and it's really kind of crazy, dude. Kate's addicted to it as well. So what we do is I play like Unicorn Overlord during the day or this or that and some other PC games, but then at night we sit down, we watch movies in bed, and I put it up on my tablet using console streaming, right, and just play Balatro for hours while we just chill and watch movies, man. So that's been a bit what I've been doing for gaming. But yeah, thanks for having me, and let's have some fun, bro.
Yeah, for sure. Now I cannot forget my co-hosts. Rev up your engines, buckle in, because our speed demon, Fuzzy, was the spirit of Felix the cat literally inside of him, or by his side, one of those. He's a turbocharged co-host. He's raced his way onto this very show. Fuzzy, Belvedere, the legend, how are you? What have you been playing?
Thank you for that intro. I'm doing great. Glad to be here with Mav and Black Viking, and this is going to be a good one tonight. But as far as what I'm playing a little bit of everything. You can see Undisputed in the background, still playing that. Career mode, still fun. Been playing Sifu because I want to have like that I Am the Dragon kind of vibe going as far as like fighting games right now. Been also playing GT7 and Horizon 5, collecting cars and things like that, but really trying to clear the palette before Dragon's Dogma next week. I think that's going to be the one that will replace my time sink of the year, Starfield, where, man, I think I have 12 days that are counted on Xbox. I forget how many days are on PC, and I even have like a secondary account that I've been like just messing around with, doing like PC mods and trying different things. But definitely looking forward to that Starfield DLC some point this year too. So we'll see how things pan out. But that's what I've been playing so far.
Yeah, and we got a couple comments. People saying like the intro was amazing. Thank you. Got another subscriber. And I got Soul says 3-bit. We don't talk like that down here. Hey, I beg to differ. I went to Texas. I heard some people talk like this. You know,
They have, I
He's-
stay there too, and they absolutely do talk like that.
Now, like if you live in the city, not so much, but
Right,
if you
yeah,
get
right.
like you drive 45 minutes outside of the city, and that accent creeps up, dude. I have some home videos of me and my family when we were kids when we lived in East Texas outside of Dallas,
Mhm.
and I don't recognize the voices that are coming out of some of my family's mouth. It is
Did,
insane.
did you have a strong accent? Did it like go away, or did you ever have?
Lucky enough, I was young when we moved to like the Dallas area, right? So it's there, and it like sometimes it comes out, but it's not as strong. I don't say worsher and stuff like
Worser.
that. That I got it's there in my DNA, but it's I can have a conversation with city folk and be
Yeah.
normal.
Heck yeah. I used to have like a really heavy New York accent. I think it's gone. I think it's
You're
safe to
from
say.
Georgia, man.
I know. I'm basically from Georgia now. I mean, I've been in Georgia long enough, but I used to have a New York accent.
Oh wow.
Can you give us an example of your New York accent?
No. I can't. What do I say?
Well, for me, with my old New York accent, I used to say mother, father, car,
Father.
door.
Door.
You could be like,
Send my
boom,
Boston.
like mother, father, sister, brother.
Yeah,
Mother.
like that. That used to be like. But when I came to Pennsylvania, they teased me so much about it. Like it eventually went away. And then when I joined the military, I picked up a little bit of a Southern twang from South Carolina and in Virginia. And then people were like, "Wait, you were born in New York, but how do you have this Southern accent?" Like when you're in the military and if you're in that area, you pick it up pretty quick, type of thing. But since then, all of them's kind of blended into this Philadelphia, Southern New York kind of mix and match kind of thing, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. All right. You know what? Let's get into our first topic, y'all. So the first topic I wanted to get into is actually the PlayStation 5 Pro, hence the title, the console race. What that means to me is why I dropped it in the title. I think it can be a race between what Xbox is going to do, what PlayStation 5 is going to do. PlayStation 5 is heavily rumored to have a PlayStation 5 Pro out by the end of this year, it seems, with increased hardware capabilities, which there has been conversations on how this move sets Sony up for success for the launch of GTA 6. Now, some people know the fact that I was a game developer in the industry, worked with companies like Xbox and Ubisoft. That doesn't make me a technical T-flops expert, which we might get into. However, I like to think I'm somewhat knowledgeable in the pipeline development process of video games. Now that can kind of like translate to using the specs that you have. I have some thoughts on like the industry trends and what they tend to do when new tech is introduced. So let's pull up this article. It is from the journalist Tom Henderson. You guys can see in the video included in there. So according to Tom Henderson, who writes for InsiderGaming.com, the headline reads, "More PlayStation 5 Pro specs detailed." Following this week's leaks on the PlayStation 5 Pro GPU specs and performance targets, Insider Gaming has learned more PlayStation 5 Pro specs. It goes into like the detail of like the CPU having 3.85 gigahertz, which is a 10% increase over the standard console. And then it goes into how the CPU will downclock the GPU by around 1.5%, resulting in 1% lower GPU performance. Goes into all the different things for the GPU, what that means. It says that it renders 45% faster than the PS5. Yeah, so a couple different technical jargon, right? And what that could essentially mean. Now, my initial thoughts are more general. So currently right now, if you are a third-party developer, this is how it happens right now. The common theme is to focus in on whoever is the market leader. PlayStation is the market leader, which means as a developer, you prioritize that version of the game. It's kind of annoying. That's just how it works nowadays. So even if the Xbox Series X is a more powerful console, you're not going to utilize all the features in that box because you're making it for PlayStation and then you're porting it to Xbox. And then on the PlayStation side, they built a console with specs they themselves can't even fully utilize. You put all this tech into the SSD that no game could fully utilize if they intend to put it onto another console. I've talked about this on several shows, but because here's what happens if you decide to build a game. Like, let me build a game up just using the PlayStation 5's SSD speeds. That game works on the PlayStation 5 and nothing else. It doesn't work with a majority of PCs. You can't put it on the Switch or Xbox, nothing. So Sony put themselves into a corner where developers can't fully use what's in their own box to its full potential. That's kind of what's going on now. So what it does, you get this sort of comparisons with PlayStation 5 winning some and Xbox Series X winning some. But now we're in a different sphere. We got the PlayStation 5 Pro coming. So tech talk aside, and I could get into all that jargon if you guys want me to. But I want to bring y'all into the conversation. PlayStation 5 Pro seems to be in that decent spot to promoting games like GTA 6 for next year. While Xbox is rumored to be having like the Series X sort of update with maybe like a diskless drive or some sort of cloud equivalent. So what do you guys think the console race looks like with the PS5 Pro coming? I'll bring it to Black Viking, see what you think about it. What do you think? What do you think this console race looks like with the PS5 Pro coming?
My fault, I was muted. I guess it only matters who has the games at that point. Because the reason why I say that, like, let's just pull apart, like, even if the PlayStation 5 Pro was, 20, 30, 40% better than the current PlayStation 5, right? They're not even pushing the hardware as it is. Developers aren't. Like, to its full potential when it comes to Xbox Series X or to the PlayStation 5. In my belief, I don't think they're pushing the hardware nearly as fast. So like coming out with a mid-gen console, and I'm not going to talk about the T-flops or 10% CPU boost, but it doesn't seem, and I'm an early adopter of tech things, right? Like of anything tech, and I'm not excited about it, right? I have a PlayStation. I have everything as much as shit I talk or whatever about certain platforms, but this doesn't excite me at all. Like, are we finally going to get 4K 60 as you advertise for the PlayStation 5? Like, probably not. But in my opinion, and then the narrative, y'all all heard the narrative. The Series S is holding back the Series X. Now, will the PlayStation 5 hold back the PlayStation 5 Pro? Since people have to develop for the PlayStation 5, of course, but like, what are we going to get? Probably with the PlayStation 5 Pro, you'll get more stable frame rates and probably a little bit of a resolution boost. But still, GTA 6 isn't going to be 4K 60. It's just not, right? So there's no pipeline of games that we know that's coming out for PlayStation. So I don't know who they're selling this to, unless you're just selling it to just say you have it. You know what I mean? Because I think a lot of people are just going to, especially in this economy now, I think a lot of people are just going to keep their, like, this is good enough. You know what I mean? As for Xboxes, they might do that digital thing this holiday season, which would be cool. But golly, the amount of games that are coming out the second half of this year, starting with Hellblade. You just let the games do the talking, man, and market correctly. And then this will probably be the first year that Xbox can market Call of Duty. And you're fine, dude. Like, you're okay. And one more point to Call of Duty, they have to keep parity, correct?
Yeah.
So I don't think the PS5 Pro is going to get a boost. They'll probably be just on par with the Series X. And if anything, this PS5 Pro is probably going to help the Series X a lot more because developers usually go to the market leader to develop their games and develop using those tools. With those tools, so the PS5 Pro is a little bit better than the PS5, and then that could translate directly to Xbox finally getting its shine, because I don't think developers have been prioritizing the Series X nearly as much. But that's just me talking,
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, good points. I think with I mean, yeah, like you said, a lot of developers, they tend to not prioritize the Series X, which leads to a lot of performance disparities. That's why I was excited that Xbox was buying these studios. Like, hey, we're gonna force you to use this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And we'll see what they end up doing. Now that they own a lot of these studios, I feel like we still haven't gotten the potential of these consoles yet. Like we're just now getting into it, and they're already talking about new ones. Which I feel like that does happen sometimes. Like a lot of the end of like the PlayStation 3 cycle, you get like a lot of those. They use the box,
right?
The power potential at the very end of its life cycle. I really hope this isn't the case with these consoles too, but I mean, we'll see. So I'm gonna bring the question to you, Mav. What do you think? What do you think the console race looks like?
I think ultimately it's not going to have a huge impact on Xbox. They're going to stand pat and do what they were going to do, because they're kind of like, consoles are less important to them than they ever were in the past anyway, but it's still a core part of what they're doing. It's just they're less concerned about what Sony's doing, right? And other platforms. So I think they're going to stand pat. Do I personally wish there was like a mid-gen upgrade? Personally, yes, just because I always want the best, right? It's just like a personal thing. I don't think it necessarily makes that much business sense, right? But for me, I just always want the next best thing and stuff. So waiting a couple more years for Xbox will be kind of like tough when PlayStation has like that little bit step up for me, right? Just because like the multi-plats may perform a little bit better and stuff over on PlayStation for a while, how much better they perform, I don't know. I hear a lot of talk about this, and I'm kind of curious on what you think, 3-bit, because you're a developer, right?
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people are saying, it's very good points about, well, now that if the PS5 Pro exists, then finally these developers will start taking advantage of the tools and stuff that Xbox has and all this kind of stuff, right? But like for me, in the back of my mind, I just still don't trust any of these companies, and I just feel like what they're probably gonna do is give a PS5 Pro version that takes advantage of all that stuff, and then give Xbox users the PS5 version that doesn't take advantage of all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that it seems like that's happened before in the past. You know what I mean? So like, why? So I personally, I just don't have 100% faith that that's going to be what happens. Just from the history of how these developers treat Xbox, right? But however, I think maybe some companies will, right? You could look at maybe like an EA and some companies like that have had more of a history with taking advantage of Xbox's hardware where it's available in the times of doing free updates and stuff like that, right? But yeah, I think that there are some games that are going to have some advantages in the multiplats, and that's going to be what PlayStation has to market with it, like at the gates for the launch, right? Because they have nothing this year to market with it for this holiday, right?
Right.
So they're gonna do like probably a hopes and dreams show, right? Like we're talking about the last couple days, and they'll market like their 2025 games, maybe 2026 games, and some of these like finally the games that their first party studios have been working on for a while. Hopefully some ones that'll get people excited. But then for the more coming soon stuff, it'll be the big multi-plats and things like that, and companies that they make deals with
Baby
to say
steps.
like this will be the this will, if that launches the hopes and dreams showcase with the PS5 Pro, I will die. But yeah, I think they'll have like some big multi-plats of like this is going to play best on PlayStation because of like this and that. And they'll kind of market it like that, and you'll have like the journalists and stuff falling for it and stuff. But like if so, now the more news that came out today about the CPU, that's like that makes me a little bit less interested, honestly, because for what we've seen so far this generation, that's been the bottleneck for frames.
Yes, it has.
Right. And it's been like these co-op open world type games and stuff like that. That like, oh, they're trying to do so much. Like it's a CPU thing. It's not a GPU thing, right? And if the CPU is not really any better, and the CPU on the PS5 wasn't really as good as the Xbox Series X in the first place, like that's not really telling me that that's going to be a big improvement on frames, which is what I care about most, and for the games that have struggled with it. Because I feel like if the game didn't struggle with it, it won't struggle on the new hardware. But if the game did struggle, it still would struggle, being that the CPU was the bottleneck in the first place.
Right.
Right. So but then I don't know about the the AI boost thing. I don't know how that works. I don't know what kind of advantages that gives and all that kind of stuff. So somebody much smarter than me would have to tell me, but I just need to see it. I need to see what the advantages are. I am all for enthusiast level higher end boxes for maybe not for the mass consumers, but something that like, hey, if you want to go and pay extra for something that is going to play games better, I'm personally all for that, because it's just my personal taste. Like I want the next Series X or next Xbox to have a crazy version that's just like insane, that I know is going to perform and play games and brute force them to be amazing, like even with lazy developers and all that kind of stuff out there. So ultimately, long run, I don't know how much of an impact it has on Xbox, but it is something I'm going to keep an eye on, because I think I would be interested in it, depending on the CPU thing and how much of an advantage or not, because that's kind of turned me off a little bit.
Yeah, we'll see, right? A lot of games are GPU dependent, especially open world, like you were saying, open world games. I'm like 100% sure that GTA 6 is going to be very GPU dependent.
Yeah.
So I am curious of how well GTA 6 is going to perform on the PS5 Pro compared to PS5. I wonder what they're going to do there, because we do know if any developer is going to start taking advantage of the hardware, Rockstar historically has somewhat taken advantage, but at the same time they've taken, I don't know, like Red Dead Redemption, for example, is still 30 frames and stuff like that. But on the One X, it had better resolution and stuff like that. Like they use some of the box's power.
Well, they could get Red Dead to run 60 frames right now if they did an update on it.
Yeah, easily.
They just don't care about doing an update and then they'll wait and they'll resell it to us later with a remastered version.
Yeah. Probably.
Exactly.
Yeah, I bought GTA 5 probably like 6 times.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. They updated it for the Xbox One, PS4 generation. That's when we got first person mode and all that kind of stuff, right?
Mhm.
And then we just this generation got the 60 frames mode.
Yep.
Right. So it took 2 generations for them to update and resell us something that gave us 60 frames on GTA.
Which is ridiculous.
I'm not holding my breath for Red Dead anytime soon. Unfortunately.
I really want Red Dead to be 60 frames. But I'll bring you into the conversation, Fuzzy. What do you think the console race looks like? I do agree that like a lot of games, I mean the CPU, it seems like it'll be another bottleneck. Now to give Sony credit, they've had a lot of their titles running with 60 FPS modes and ray tracing modes and stuff like Spider-Man. And they seem to be upping their ray tracing implementation, if anyone really cares about that. So what do you think? What do you think this console race looks like?
I think at least with the PS5 Pro, I think it will be kind of like a Xbox One X type of thing where the CPU still being kind of the anchor to some extent. They're not going to be able to get too far away from what the current PS5 or current consoles can do in general, but I think you will see if the devs take the time, better specular lighting or better, ray tracing as far as the level of detail. Because sometimes when you look in like those mirror reflections, you'll see that the resolution is like 600p or something like that, and I think they'll probably be able to make it something more suitable like 8 or 900p or maybe 1080p as far as like a reflection, so that way it looks a little more or a lot smoother in comparison. But I've said this from get-go. I don't think games that are running 30 that we raised our arms and complained about running 30 this generation on like the Series X or the PS5, I don't think those games are going to have any easier time running 60 on the PS5 Pro. I think if they can, you'll see them run to like a 1080p dynamic setup where it might go as low as like 900 or 700 and something, to keep it a consistent 60. But I don't think the GPU aspect of the APU itself, I don't think it's enough to kind of brute force the frame rate. Now, the AI aspect that's added in there can help with frame generation, I guess. They are going for more of a DLSS kind of setup, but I've said it before, and it's not a knock on AMD and compared to like NVIDIA. I don't think their tech is quite there just yet to really make it, that much more brutal or brute force it to get it to 60 frames. I think it'll make everything look so much better as far as texture quality or the overall sharpness, no matter how far you zoom in, having extra particle effects and things like that without making the frame rates drop below 30. I think you'll see, games that look much better or crisper or a lot more bells and whistles, but just still at 30 frames. And maybe occasionally, especially for like first party, they'll do that 40 or 45 frame thing where you have to make sure your TV's in 120 mode to kind of give it that smoothing effect, like it's pseudo 60. But I think Sony's step here is to say that, games play best on the PS5 Pro. I think, having that power narrative, even though they're the market leader currently, I think them, beating their chest on that, just like we see kind of like not really underhandedly, but you notice that they're putting the word exclusive more forefront on some of their stuff as far as console exclusive and whatnot. So that word is being thrown around in some of their ads now a little bit more because they kind of can, at least until, things really hit the fan for them and we start seeing the day and date on PC stuff. But I think the PS5 Pro will just be a prettier version of the PS5, but not really doing any real groundbreaking on the 60 frames front. Now on Xbox's side, kind of like what Black Viking was saying, they have the roadmap, they have the games lined up. So as long as those games land, they don't get extreme pushback or delays or anything like that. Like as long as everything's on track, they give them plenty of time for polishing before release, and they land with the audience. I think that's what sells everything for Xbox until they're ready to unveil their next gen console. I think a refresh with a diskless one will do well. I mean, even though people made fun of the Xbox One S SAD or the all digital or whatever, it did well enough for a all digital version to make it into this generation of console. And seeing that even PlayStation has a digital only console as well, it just goes with the times. I mean, I think worldwide it's about 70 or 80% digital compared to physical. I think the UK is kind of like one of the last holdouts when it comes to physical media, or as far as for games. Most other places are north of 80 or some places 90%. The US is one of those where we're pretty close to 90%. And I know there's a lot of people that are diehard that are very vocal about physical media and stuff like that.
Yeah, they keep using the UK box sales as a measure for success when most people buy games digitally. So
yeah, and unfortunately, we kind of lost that physical battle years ago. But moving forward, I say bring it on. It's just we instead of still doing the pushback for physical, we need to do the pushback for digital rights ownership.
Correct.
To make sure that the manufacturers or the publishers can't, snatch it back from you when the license runs out, kind of thing, with whoever sold it to you type of deal. But outside of that, I think with Xbox, if rumors or their hints of a handheld come true and it's on par or better, and I think it would probably be better than what the Steam Deck 2 is, because if you were to turn the Series S into a portable just as it is, it would already outdo the Steam Deck. So all they got to do is focus on something along those lines that's in line with the next generation, have it where the games can play natively on that device, and then maybe have an AI or an MPU or neural processing unit kind of squeezed in there somewhere to help with the upscaling. I think that's all they really need. And I agree with Mav. They definitely need to look in or lean into that enthusiast box. The only thing I disagree on is maybe the price point, because my pocket, when it starts going past $800, I start looking at the PC and it's like the $800 in the PC might be better spent.
Yeah.
But I totally understand the enthusiast console, because I mean, let's be honest, the Series X is that. And to some lesser extent, I think the PS5 is that, although it's more of the casual box. But everything that they squeezed into the Series X is like, 2 years ago or 3 years ago, the enthusiast box. So if they go ahead and do that same thing, and let's say it comes in at 700, but it's, packing a wallop of the equivalent of like a 3090 type level, power output, I think people will be pleasantly surprised or more than happy with that, especially for something that they can fit under their TV and not have to worry about updates or, compatibility, modding and stuff like that. So yeah, I think the only one that's the weird one with this whole console race right now is Nintendo. We know the Switch 2 has been pushed back. I was hoping it would be something Steam Deck worthy or better, but it sounds like it's probably
Don't hold
not.
your breath.
Yeah, it sounds like they're putting a PS4 in a portable handheld unit kind of thing, type of level or range, which isn't bad. But
it'll still be cool for Nintendo.
For Nintendo, but it feels out of place in the big, I guess you could say the big scope of
hopefully no more
right
tiled
now.
grass. No more tiled grass.
Yeah.
I just want to be able to read the words on a big screen. That's
Nintendo probably didn't see the handheld boom take off the way it does. So they've already been developing the Switch 2. So they just might be in a world of hurt, within a couple of years, with potentially Xbox releasing a handheld, PlayStation releasing a handheld. You already have these like PC handhelds already out there, and they're killing it right now. You know what I mean? Like, and that will take market share away from Nintendo like crazy, right? Especially with all these, you cut one head off with Yuzu and 17 more pop up. If I want to play, let's be frank here, if I want to play Nintendo games, I want to play them at 4K 60, and there's no better place to do that than on my ROG Ally. You know what I mean?
Nintendo lawyers are like, they got you in the scope. Like, what'd you say?
I know.
No, I feel that. I think the Nintendo, whatever they decide to do with their console, I'm hoping that again we can at least get rid of the tiled grass, that it's somewhat sharp in image and doesn't have to rely on a cartoon style for it to run well. And a couple of things I hope they do with that console. We'll see. If it is the equivalent of like a PS4, I think I'd be somewhat happy, because the Switch was outdated when it came out. So now it would be at a state where, I don't know, PS4
still outdated.
Still outdated. Still outdated, but somewhat you could run some games that I would want to. Because what's the problem with Nintendo is when the FTC had their court case with like Call of Duty and stuff like that, they're like, oh, we're gonna put Call of Duty on the Nintendo platforms. They never said the Switch. They said Nintendo platforms. I was like, yeah, they gotta say Nintendo platforms, because can it run on the Switch?
Yeah,
I'm
not
sure
the
it can.
Switch.
Maybe
Yeah.
through the cloud. They've done this thing where like graphically intensive games run on the Switch, but it's through the cloud or
Yeah.
something like that. Unless you are ID Tech, who are wizards and somehow got that game running on the Switch. Props to them. They somehow did it. So yeah, let's talk. Fuzzy, you brought up a lot of good points, and I was like, man, I was trying to branch off or think of the branches of conversation when you were bringing up certain things. So like, dang, those are a lot of good points. The pricing is one thing I definitely want to discuss, because I know just PlayStation's mentality. They're not going to want to take a loss on this. They're going to definitely want to make quite a profit. And the thing about the console market is they are pretty much used to taking a loss for the benefit of market, being in the market and things like that. But with the PS5 Pro, I don't feel like they're going to do that. So from the rumors, are we looking at an $800 console? And goes to anybody who wants to answer. Are we looking at 800, or is it 700? What are we even looking at with the pricing infrastructure of this console? What are we thinking?
I got a short and sweet one. $600, no cords, no controller. And
They don't give you nothing. Like, just take
you gotta buy everything separately. Anything other than that, man, is blasphemy, in my opinion. If I think Fuzzy commented on one of my things, if I can't trade in my PS5 and get it for 150, 175 bucks, I'm not doing it. The leap isn't there for me. You know what I mean? And then, like, for what? Like, y'all, there's no games launching with it.
Yeah.
What am I doing this for? This comes from a person that owns all platforms. You know what I mean? Yeah, knowing them, it'll probably be like 7. But like, Jesus, that's just going to be too hard. Like, who are you selling this to?
Yeah, that's where I believe Mav's point was probably on the money, right? You don't have a lot of games this year as Sony. So what are you going to do? You have the Hopes and Dreams showcase and be like, ooh, these are the games eventually coming.
Yeah.
And then you have the fanboys be like, look, this is all the games we have. But it doesn't come out till like a little bit later.
Yeah.
I think what they'll do is they'll have, because when they reveal this, it'll probably be closer to fall holiday, right?
Mhm.
And it'll launch holiday is what the rumors are, right? So if they
Right.
do like a show September, October, most people are already starting to think about the next year anyway. So it kind of works in their favor. Like, hey, this year's already passed. We don't got anything. Don't worry about this year. Everybody pull wool over your eyes. But hey, look at these big multi-plats coming out this holiday that are going to play best on PS5 Pro, right? And then they say, well, but also they'll have kind of one of those like 2016 showcases like they had where so here's everything coming for 2025 and 2026, right? And they have some of those big games and they talk about the advantages of the PS5 Pro there. And I think most of the media, everybody's going to ignore the fact that they didn't have anything this year, at that point, because they'll just be talking about how excited they are for the next 2 years with this console and all that kind of stuff. Price wise, I'm thinking like 7 to 8, but like maybe they get like 650 to 750 or 6 to 7. It depends on what they do with the disk drive also, because I think they're gonna maybe just have either 2 versions or just one without a disk drive and then like an attachable one. So without a disk drive, I think they could be like $100 less than what I was thinking originally. So if they could have had 7, maybe they could manage to do it for 6. Because what's the digital version now? It's like $399, I think. So you'd be I think it's $399. So you'd be looking at $200 more than the regular digital at $599, right? And then with a disk drive, you'd be looking at $699, which would be 7. Or they could do like $650 and $750, maybe.
Yeah.
Or even more than that. I don't know. It depends on how much. I don't think they want to take a loss on this thing. I don't think they're going to sell this for like, hey, we're putting this out there to acquire as many users as possible. They're just trying to resell consoles to the same people that already have them, and you'd be able to use this as a marketing device to say that this is the best place to play still until the next generation comes. So overall, I think like they're going to try and sell this at a profit.
Yeah. Let's
I just don't know how much profit.
Look at some of the chat. So the chat, they're going off right now. Punty's putting in trains. Appreciate you, Punty. I seen you subscribe earlier. So yeah, everybody in here, hit that like button. Appreciate y'all. So a lot of good conversations in the chat. I seen Yobi. He's kind of talking about the console had to brute force Xenoverse 2 to run at 60 frames per second. Yeah. Anybody who's able to get like a lot of good performance out of the Switch, I give you my salute. Because I would not want to develop for that console, and I'm a developer. Yobi says Nintendo on the way to dethrone the PS2. That's cold. That's cold. Man, there was some other comment I've seen in here. We got Ducato saying Phantasy Star Online 2 and Nier, I believe, run in the cloud. Yeah, so that's when I was talking about the Nintendo Switch running some games natively through the cloud to get that performance, because hey, it's just hard to get that game actually on the Switch, but you put it in the cloud, then you don't gotta really worry about the specs of all that. I guess one of the last things I'll say about PlayStation 5 Pro specs, I didn't really want to get into the conversation of like all the little specs and what they mean and that different stuff, more a generality, and I think you guys hit it on the nail of that. But to hint a little bit on that, the leak says it was like a 45% increase in like render performance, which can confirm that it is a dual issue CU, which would be equivalent to like 16 teraflops. So the lack of RAM bandwidth is why you don't see like a 60% improvement on the PlayStation 5. So I think if anything, the way AMD does their teraflops compared to other places like Nvidia and stuff, they kind of cheat it a little bit. It looks good in their marketing. But if you guys like check out the AMD 7000 cards, that should be a good indicator of why it's not the jump that people may think it is. So when you are looking at these teraflops, like, oh, look how much more teraflops it is in the Xbox, I don't think that's a good indicator, because AMD really likes to boost it a little bit up for their marketing compared to other graphics cards. Maybe you can compare it to like higher end ones, but I don't think it's a good comparison.
Are you excited about the 3 times to 4 times ray tracing 3-bit?
Get some shinier puddles.
That the most exciting thing?
I mean,
it's such a weird metric.
Can you explain that to me as a developer, what 3 times ray tracing means?
I mean, can I? 3 to 4 times.
It says 2 to 3 times, sometimes 4 is what they said. So as a developer, like what does 2 to 3 times ray tracing, sometimes 4 mean? I'm really interested
from what I know, doesn't Sony, they use like a software implementation of ray tracing, right? Mm-hmm. So while Series X uses hardware, like it's in the box ray tracing. So there's 2 different forms of how they do ray tracing. I guess that just means what ray tracing is just it's you're taking rays images. Right now the traditional way is using a box. How do I display this without sounding like a huge tech nerd? Right now we use this, basically it's an image, it saves performance. Ray tracing is like the real, like what is actually in the environment. So when it says like 3 to 4 times in implementation, I think it just means that it can render it with faster frames when you're like spinning around the camera, or maybe higher what Fuzzy was saying earlier with like 800p in the reflection, maybe it can go a little bit higher. You don't have to worry about the performance a little bit more. I think that's.
Can I tell you what I
nice.
think it means?
Shinier puddles.
I think it's bullshit. What I think it is. I think it's just a fake made up marketing number so they can just say it has 3 times ray tracing, and there's like there's no way to judge or
quantify that.
Yeah,
the guy just went in the notepad settings and did like 2 lines of code. Like, I'm done.
Yeah, let's pitch this to our developers, because the document supposedly came from like something that they sent to like third parties, right? Like, so it's just like, hey, you get 3 times ray tracing here on PlayStation. You know, like, oh, cool, yeah, let's ray trace the shit out of this thing, man. Yeah, like
reflections have reflections.
Yeah.
Hey,
more puddles. They're gonna have so many puddles in these games now, man. It's gonna be crazy, dude. Our shoes are gonna be wet everywhere we walk.
I feel like a lot of the PlayStation 5, what the PlayStation 5 is just jargon, marketing jargon. Because again, when I talked about the SSD, you can't even fully utilize the SSD. So when Mark Cerny had that talk of how much the SSD is going to impact games and stuff, unless you are building a game specifically for the PS5, it's not going anywhere, not going on PC, not going on Xbox, not Switch, it's only going to PS5, then yes, you can utilize that SSD speeds and stuff like that.
Do you think Spider-Man 2 utilized the SSD like what you're saying?
No.
Why not?
Because it's going to go on PC.
How many times ray tracing does Spider-Man 2 have? I'm just curious.
Maybe it's in the name, Spider-Man 2.
Is it 1 times? Is it 0.5 times?
It's a sequel, right? So
I think it's about as many as many Game Awards they won.
It's cold. It's cold. No, I know Mav, he doesn't like them, or I think he hasn't been convinced yet.
I like when games look better. I just don't like when they run like shit because they look a little bit better.
Yeah. Should we get into the engine conversation? That's not a topic, but I feel like maybe we should.
Yeah.
I feel like, like Unreal Engine, right? So this is something we've gone back and forth with for a bit, because before all these games came out with Unreal Engine 5, I will admit I talked about how happy I was with Unreal Engine 5, how cool the engine is, all the features in the engine is super cool. And then what did these developers do to discredit 3-bit? They made their games run like trash, right? Mm-hmm. They're like, oh, 3-bit said this engine is good, let me right? So while I think all those features are cool and stuff, the main problem of what I think is happening is these games, these developers, they are now focusing on just making the game. I feel like it's a pipeline problem. You have, instead of you optimizing the game early in development, you're relying on all these tools to optimize the game for you. So you're like, oh, I have this thing. This will help with like when the camera turns around, the objects disappear. Cool. I'll add that in there. And Unreal Engine has this thing. I can like do some objects here. They basically have a feature in Unreal Engine 5 where poly counts don't matter anymore. You are walking towards an object and it's supposed to always stay the same polygon count, stuff like that, right? You basically rely on the engine to do your work for you instead of optimizing it early in the pipeline development. So the problem with that is, before, what developers should do is, I have to develop a game for the Switch, this small box that has terrible specs, but I have to get my game to fit on the Switch. How do I do that? You have to optimize the heck out of that game to work on the Switch. You have to cut some corners. This grass, it has to tile. You see the line where the grass image ends and stuff like that, right? So developers, that's what they do. They optimize the game to run for your platform. But what developers are doing now is they're like, I got all of this power in the Series X and all of this power in the PlayStation 5. This game is gonna be fine. It'll optimize itself. You know, I genuinely feel like that's what's happening in the pipeline process. It's kind of why we might have more power, but games are still running kind of bad. You still get like the 30 frames. Some games are like, this should clearly be 60 frames. This is like an old game. Why is this running like trash, right?
Yeah.
So
3-bit, do you think a lot of this, like the optimization portion, has a lot to do with the current state of CPUs? Because like I know a lot of people even that have like really good GPUs, but we all know if that CPU ain't up to snuff, that should get bottleneck, and it's crazy. So like what is the Series X, S, and the PlayStation 5's CPU look like comparative to a PC? You know what I mean?
I mean, the GPU is a lot of games, a lot of engines rely on the GPU too.
Right.
When Mav is talking about all these games, they're like, this game looks like trash or is running like trash, right?
Right.
It's GPU dependent for sure.
But the CPU has to talk to the GPU.
Yeah.
Or like send down the signals to do a thing. But if the CPU is not good enough, then that's where you get that bottleneck and it runs even shittier.
Right.
You
need a little bit of both, right? You need a good CPU, good GPU. Certain engines are smart where they could rely on maybe CPU more because the CPU is little, and then most engines though they rely on the GPU. And Psycho, you're in the chat, so I know Psycho loves tech talk. So go ahead, Psycho, spit your game. But for the most part, I that's a good point, Viking. I do believe like GPU and CPU does matter in the conversation of like with the Series S and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I feel like it's still developers choosing to optimize the game later in development rather than think about it.
Because they probably don't have the time, right?
Yeah.
They have like these smaller. Do you think it was a mistake? Probably. Sorry, I'm over here interviewing your ass.
Yeah.
do you think that it was a mistake probably to move that fast into Unreal 5? Because Unreal 4 still looks great.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Okay.
I mean, I use Unreal Engine 5. I use Unreal Engine 5 to this day. The lighting and stuff, the Lumen architecture and all that different stuff is so cool.
Yeah. Right.
It's the technology, if it can be used in a way where games still run very well, then it is a game changer. That's for sure. But developers are still struggling with performance. So to Mav's point, I mean, I can't disagree with him when he's talking about like, get ray tracing out of these games. If my game doesn't perform well, why do I even need a shiny puddle?
Ray tracing, your show is spinning.
Yeah, it was the ray.
It's back.
All right.
It was the ray tracing that got me. Shoot, what was I saying? Saying something about Mav and ray tracing and something like that.
Yeah, ray tracing is stupid. If it tanks the performance of your game for a reflection on a puddle, it looks slightly more realistic.
Yeah,
that's my opinion. Now, like, there's certain games where it's like, hey, we can have great performance and have great looking ray tracing and all that stuff. Cool, yeah, like give it to me, like, because it makes it look better. But like, if you're going out there and like just using these names as a gimmick because like, you're trying to push things forward and stuff like that, and it gives like a slight fidelity advantage, but it completely makes your game run like ass and halves the performance, right, with frame rate wise, like wait till the technology's there. Or at least give the options. There's some games like when Jedi Survivor launched, right? I think that the forced ray tracing there just completely killed the performance on that game. And it was like so unnecessary because it didn't make that big of a difference. And in fact, if you played Fallen Order like on a Series X with the enhancements, but like it looked better in most cases, right?
Right.
So there's certain like, is it an advantage or sometimes if it's utilized right, but like don't just force it in there because it's the next best thing, and if your game can't really
and developers or journalists need to start putting game performance in their freaking reviews because they never talk about like Jedi Survivor and how that performed. Like you're saying, Mav, it was like very buggy. The performance was awful. You don't see a single like IGN or big review site talk about it. Like this is
it's still not great, man. I tried going back and playing like even after all the updates and stuff, and like if you put it in performance mode, like still if you do like a somersault, your guy like dematerializes and like rematerializes on the screen. It's weird. The contact with the ground is like real floaty and unnatural. Like there's in Fallen Order, like you can take your lightsaber and you can actually like slash doors and it leaves like effects and stuff on the doors and all that kind of stuff. That doesn't exist in Survivor as well. There's so many more tangible, like better things about Fallen Order than Survivor, and I think it's because they tried to push that like ray tracing and fidelity limit, but it ended up kind of backfiring and making it look worse on consoles.
Yeah, for sure. Let's just
Like,
get into some of the go ahead.
Real quick, 3-bit. So why is it so hard for them to have a ray tracing on and off switch as a developer, like on console? Like, how come I just can't turn it off and I get better performance?
I mean, here's the thing.
Is it that I know, like us as consumers, we look at it as like just put it in there, but as a developer, like, well, there's so much shit that we have to do in order for that to happen. Is that like the case?
I go here. I can speak from my perspective, right? My experience. I go into Unreal Engine. Ray tracing is a button on the side. It's a check mark. Turn it on and off. So that's for me. I'm just saying. An Unreal Engine 5, it's literally a check mark button that you can turn on and off. You can link it to a blueprint and then make that an option in the menu. To me, it's that simple. But I don't know. I really couldn't tell you. Like
you're not helping the case of the developer situation right now, 3-bit.
I'm just saying, like, if I wanted to put ray tracing in my design level, it's a button. So say that what you will.
And my point too, like there's great like shadows and reflection technology that's been out there for like a long time. That like Forza Horizon 5, people could not believe the way the reflections and that game looked in the natural environment, right? And it's like it's not ray tracing. You know, you can still have great looking games that don't have ray tracing. You know, it just depends on what tools they use and how they use it and how they make the games look. And I think ray tracing is probably the best if you can have really great, like you see like the new videos of Cyberpunk out there, like on a 4090, taking advantage of all that stuff, right? But these consoles aren't that, bro. You know, like if we can have it look like that, yes. But I don't want some kind of half-ass measure that's going to ruin the performance of everything, like just for the sake of saying it has it. That's basically my point.
And I just really wish 1440 was more of the standard than this native 4K.
Man,
because I think you could actually turn up the other aspects, like the specular highlights or the particle effects and things like that, like the stuff that will make you go ooh, like that's I think that's where. And not knocking the devs and not knocking, the publishers or whatnot, but it's like, I think that would be the better focus. Like having 1440, but all the bells and whistles turned up versus trying to go full 4K and then gradually turning the bells and whistles up. I think the 1440p is the better looking and probably the smoother running game at that point.
It just comes down to options, just give console gamers options.
Yeah. Just like
there's
PC,
no reason they can't.
I would love to just go low, mid, high, ultra on my console, just like I do on PC.
Yeah.
I would love it.
Yeah, same. Psychonauts in the chat. First off, 52 people watching. Appreciate everybody in here. We just started. This is episode 5. Right? So only 5 episodes in, and you guys are just talking in the chat, and I really appreciate everybody in here. Psychonaut says, looking at the PS5 Pro specs, it's the based PS5 CPU, but overclocked in the Pro. No word on the RAM specs, and is the GPU specs bloated because of the NPU AI chip? That's what I was saying. Like AMD, they tend to like blow up the T-flops a little bit for marketing reasons. Like their equations to upping their numbers, you know, is different from like NVIDIA and stuff like that. That's kind of.
I'm a little confused about that, just because like on the original PS5, it's variable anyway, right? On the CPU clock speed, and that was like a big thing. Like, I'm not a tech guy, so correct me if I'm wrong about any of this stuff, but if that was variable anyway, so like the 10% faster, is that something they could have done anyway, just on a it seems like it's probably just the same CPU, but they're able to just up the clock speed slightly because it has more of the stronger GPU. It's taking a little bit of the load off, you know?
Yeah, and hopefully it's a fixed clock at this point, with it being that 10% boost. So it'd be like whatever the maximum for the PS5 was, where it was variable.
It's not fixed because they can put it in hyper mode, 10% boost.
Yeah, that's, you know.
Yeah,
remember, they got a hyper mode on this thing, man.
Is that for real?
Yeah,
There's
yeah. Like it's I don't know if it's called hyper mode, but that's what I'm gonna call it.
Turn on hyper mode. PSV went.
Push a button,
PS5
the fan starts, you know, spinning up.
Turn into PS4 jet mode. Let's go.
Yes.
Yeah, Psychonauts is variable. And yeah, I really wish they talked about performance in reviews. Like, what's the point of, if I bought Jedi Survivor and I'm just like, this game, I'm like running like a chopped ninja or something. I don't know. It's like, why did I not hear about that in a review?
Dude, same fucking thing with Cyberpunk, right?
I mean, facts. I mean, as much as I love Cyberpunk, that
there
but
wasn't
when
it launched, bruh. I mean, we got the juicy good reviews, and that shit launched, and it was like what? Give me the version y'all was playing, because this shit is crazy.
This across the board, they need to do that. Yeah. Go ahead.
Here it is. The CPU is identical to the standard PlayStation 5. However, the Pro has a high CPU frequency mode, which takes the CPU to a blistering 3.85 gigahertz, a 10% increase over the standard console. In high CPU frequency mode, more power is allocated to the CPU and will downclock the GPU by around 1.5%, resulting in roughly 1% lower GPU performance. So it's got a high CPU frequency mode, and it's the same CPU other than that. So I guess it's just something the developers can choose. So, hey, we need this sucker in hyper mode. I don't know.
I guess we'll see, right? I mean, yeah, but that's what some
Rockstar put it in hyper mode, and it melts the console.
Yeah.
Hopefully they're not using the liquid metal still at that point, and it's horizontal orientation only or something if they do.
Remember when the PS5 launched, like they were having issues with that, and they actually lowered the clock speed a little bit, right? With the firmware.
Assassin's Creed was one of the first that lowered
it was causing a lot of the pixelation and artifacting and stuff on the screen. So then they came out with updates. I mean, remember, like originally Valhalla ran a little bit better on PlayStation, and then after they changed with the firmware updates and stuff, Valhalla actually ran a little bit worse on PlayStation than Xbox. Yeah. So like there was a lot of tinkering with firmware updates and stuff at that around launch to get the variable clock speeds and stuff like that kind of fine tuned, I think. So
Amit Kumar says Square Enix about to set that B on fire. Yeah, for sure.
Are they bringing back the like huge copper cooling thing? Remember that? Like when it came out?
I guess so, right?
It was like massive.
They better.
A couple people subscribing. Appreciate y'all. So you know what? Let's jump into the second topic. So this is a topic I was kind of avoiding for a bit. Not gonna lie. For several reasons. One, I wanted to make sure I was educated enough and knew exactly what was going on and everything. Viking spoke on it on his show, and I thought he did a great job jumping into this sweet baby things going on, right? So
Yeah.
here's the thing. So I personally work with consultants. I've seen what they've done. A reminder, I've worked with Xbox, I worked with Ubisoft in the past. So I've seen what they've done, and I try to always speak from my experience, not necessarily. I hate following a group mentality when people jump on like Xbox or stuff or PlayStation for stuff or really anything. I always try to be like, well, this is what I think. I don't know. So from what I've seen, from employee statements from Sweetbaby and stuff, most of that hate is kind of justified, right? In my opinion, from what they've been saying and some of their backstories and stuff like that. Consulting in general, from my experience working with consultants on different AAA video games, they've been nothing but additive to a production in my experience. So when you're close to a production, it can get hard to see your mistakes. It can get harder and harder to see your mistakes. If it's like you stare at a project for a long time, I mean, you don't realize, you kind of gloss over stuff that you might have missed like a million times. You're like staring at this one section of level, like, it looks good to me, and you realize there's like a floating guy in the middle, in the middle of the sky. You know, that can happen when you're really close to a project, when you've rewritten it millions of times. That's what these people kind of step in from like an outside perspective. So with these different consultants, in my experience, they've helped quite a bit with productions in the script writing process. I've seen it get into conversations of what people say is forced diversity. I don't really want to get too much into that because I have a feeling a lot of people are not gonna like what I have to say about that. What I will say is when I worked at these studios, I know, maybe I will. So what I will say is, when I worked at a lot of these studios, I was usually the only black person in a room. So and I've told a lot of people on different shows that I have experienced a lot of racism in the gaming industry, quite a bit. It's kind of why I kind of moved a little bit more into the movie industry. Being the only black person in a room, there was too many instances where if there was some black voices in the room, they could have told you your decisions are dumb. like for example, this is off the top of my head, Final Fantasy not adding any black characters to the game because he was like, Yoshida said that the story we're telling is fantasy, yes, but it is also rooted in reality. As you fight gigantic dragons. And shoot people with little magic powers and stuff like that, or having 343 Industry team give out gorilla emblems for a Black Holiday for Halo Infinite. Like, having some black people in the room could have clearly told you that's probably not a good idea.
Hey, dog.
Right? So I have some thoughts on like the diversity aspect of what people are talking about. But I do want to bring it to you guys because I'm curious on your perspective of like, because it goes into a lot of different spheres, right? When people are talking about Sweet Baby, it goes into a conversation of like, well, with Sweet Baby, they are making games more formulaic because we're putting check marks on parts of a game, like making sure you have the black character, making sure you have X, Y, and Z. Like it becomes like a formula. So that's one conversation I've been hearing from Sweet Baby. The other conversation I've heard is like, why do you have a consulting agency at a creative studio? Like, why do you need them there in the first place? I've seen that conversation. I've seen like a lot of different arching conversations of what it means for the industry as a whole. And then what I've seen is people use Sweet Baby like employees some of the trash that they've been saying on their personal thing, and then using that for more of the general sense. So what I've seen with Sweet Baby employees, again, like most of that hate to me is justified, because a lot of what they're saying is like kind of ridiculous in my opinion. But yeah, I do want to bring it to you guys. What do you guys essentially think about all this? Again, I've been avoiding this topic because I'm like, man, it goes into a lot of different spheres of what I think. So I wanted to, even before I brought it up, I'm like, oh man, how do I even think about this topic? Like, what do I even think about having consulting firms and stuff like that? And really, I just speak at it from my own perspective. I feel like a lot of Black creators need to be in those spaces, or just diverse people. If you're gonna have a Black character in a video game, have a Black person in the room. It's like, hey, this is cool, this is not cool, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Because I've been in these spaces, and I feel like it's the game development field needs a lot more voices for sure. But again, yeah, it gets into a lot of different arching conversations. So I will bring it to you, Viking, since you're one of the people I was thinking of. Fuzzy put this topic. He was like, "You can do this or not." I was like, "You know what? Let's talk about it," because I was gonna have it as topic of last show. Then I pushed it from the other show. I was like, you know what? Screw it. Let's talk about it. So, what do you think about the whole Sweet Baby conversation? Do you think studios should work with consultants or look to hire talent?
Of course. So I'll start off with, of course, fucking everybody needs consultants, whether that's the movie industry or if that's video game industry, when it comes to representing people the right way. I'm gonna take this. Where is Sucker Punch located at? It's in Washington State. What was the last game that they made? Ghost of
Tsushima. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you not think that group of people needed consultants on Japanese culture?
No, not at all. No, they didn't.
They just did quick Google.
Everything's on Wikipedia, man.
You're like, I got this. How hard can it be?
Yeah, I mean, it's not even. So yes, every I might go on a tangent here. So y'all stop me or come in the middle, ask questions or whatever, like why go on this journey with
for sure.
y'all. The thing that makes me upset about the SWEETBABYINC thing is that I know how these things play out. I used to be part of the political sphere or political Twitter for a very long time before I jumped into the gaming sphere last year. Yeah. I know how these things work, where you'll take one instance or one consulting group, and then you'll start making lists of all of them, saying that all of them are bad, right? So it bleeds in from one potentially bad apple, which I don't think is the case, and it bleeds into all the other consultant firms that you've never even heard of, right? That's been working on games for the past 20 years. Right. Nobody heard about SWEETBABYINC until lately. They didn't even know they worked on Spider-Man. They didn't know they worked on Alan Wake 2. They didn't know they worked on God of War Ragnarok, and none of that mattered. There was no conversation of forced diversity during that. Right. Yeah. What I want to say on this topic is, you guys have this boogeyman of, not you guys, but the rhetoric out there. There's a boogeyman of forced diversity. There's a boogeyman of bad writing, but nobody on this fucking planet can point to me exactly what they're talking about. Where is the forced diversity? Was it the developer's decision or was it the consultant's decision? Where is the bad writing? I played Suicide Squad and I thought that shit was written by James Gunn himself. I thought it was fantastic. The writing, at least. Now there's issues with the live service portion, but to me, that game, the writing of it was great.
Hilarious, bro.
I love Suicide Squad.
and then the whole Sweet Baby Inc. team worked on the writing for that game, and I thought that was fucking. I thought it was phenomenal, and I had no fucking idea who Sweet Baby Inc. was. Right? People want to say, well, they forced diversity, and this part of the game is bad, so I'm gonna attribute it to Sweet Baby Inc. They can't. They don't have any evidence of that. Zero evidence. Somebody said Suicide Squad's writing was ass. No, it wasn't. That shit was hilarious.
Whenever I see someone, some people say, because I beat the game in like 3 days or whatever. They point to the post with like Green Lanterns, like look at this as evidence. But when I played the game, I don't know. I didn't follow the mode of people saying it was bad. I actually really liked the game. I thought it took risk in storytelling, which when you take risks in storytelling, that's either gonna piss off some people, which it did. Like be like, what? You killed off my favorite. Like people heard for months or almost a year that this game was called Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, and then they're like, what?
Are
you have to kill the Justice League? What do you mean? What do you mean I have to kill the Justice League? You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry, go ahead with your
but the thing that I've been seeing is like anything forced diversity is attributed to being bad, right? Or they make bad games. When there's hundreds of bad games every year. Many of them have nothing to do with diversity, but we don't pick those apart because that's the status quo or that's the standard, right? Gollum was ass, right? Quantum Error was garbage. None of those had any sort of diversity, but whenever you go to those games, you don't say it's like, well, it's because of forced diversity the game was bad when there's none in there. You know what I mean? It irritates me to no fucking end. Yes, Black people buy video games. Black people played The Witcher 3. Did we notice when there was no Black people in it? Yes, we did. Do we notice when we are in character creation and there's only 2 fucking hairstyles for us? Yes, we notice. Right? Like we're not in those seats to make those decisions or to give feedback on like, hey, like there's many different types of cornrows, not just the ones that go straight back. Right? There's many different types of beard styles that African Americans wear, and it's not all, just the same shit or whatever. Like there's a bunch of stuff that drives me nuts, right? Me and Mav's favorite game right now, Unicorn Overlord. I haven't seen a Black person yet. Does that make the game worse, in my opinion? No, but would it have made me happy to see a hero or an ally that looks like me or looks like my daughter or looks like my son? Yes, it would have. You know what I mean? But like, yeah. Consultant firms are 100% needed by all accounts.
For sure, it definitely helped me. Like I was saying, when you're very close to a game and you're writing it you have all these teams that are close to the product and stuff. Yes, it does help to have people on the team with diverse perspectives and stuff, but you're also very close to a product, and sometimes it just helps getting an outside look. As someone who is like a third party that looks at this and like, why is this here? You're like, right, I thought it was clear because, here and here. But no, sometimes it does help to get that outside perspective for sure.
No, it 100% does. And like, could you imagine a team of Black people doing an Italian mafia set in Sicily type of video game? Like, we would need people to help us out. As much as we want to dip into the lore or dip into, the mafia's type of game, we would need to call some Italian folks in. It's like, hey, is this how they would say that? Or is this, a traditional dish that they would use, a traditional haircut that they have over in Sicily? Like, what's the different cities around Sicily and how do they act towards people who are Sicilian? Like all that kind of shit, right? Like yeah, these consultant forums are fucking needed. Like, what is everybody talking about?
Yeah, that's what I said.
Oh,
Like, it branches into different conversations, which is like when I was thinking about even this topic for the past few shows, I was like, well, what are people mad about? That's what I need to figure out before I even bring this up. And I feel like it just goes into a variety of different things. Forced diversity. This means the writing is more formulaic. You have your yellow boxes. This is, you follow that yellow area in the game. They're making us do that.
Yeah.
Like, no, they're not doing they're not doing that. They're not the reason why those decisions are happening.
Right. There was one conversation where, you know, they were talking about, well, the Spider-Man side quest where you had to help one gay kid ask out another gay kid, right? Okay. Or like the black deaf girl that was in there. Okay, I'm sure some deaf person was really happy that was playing that game. It bothered me zero bit. There's many side quests where I feel like I'm wasting my time, right? Or I feel like there's immediate danger. What the fuck am I doing picking flowers? Looking at you, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. But none of it bothers me. Like, especially when it. I'm done.
Yeah. No, good points. I mean, again, yeah, I just wanted to hear everyone's thoughts on it, and Black Viking, you had good points. I never thought about it from the Ghost of Tsushima lens, but that definitely makes sense, especially when you picture movies like Godfather and stuff who talk to like different mafia families, and to the point where mafia families are just like, are you guys like in our house? Are you guys like, what the heck?
Right.
You know, so it makes sense whenever you are researching to have different backgrounds and people who are from a different perspective than yours, to make sure you're getting things right, or it makes sense to have a consulting group. But that's just my perspective on it. I know some people, maybe they're looking at it from a different lens. I don't see it from that necessarily a different lens, except for the fact that a lot of these employees from Sweetbaby, they be saying some problematic things.
They definitely need they need to stop using their personal Twitter accounts, bro.
That is for sure. That is for sure. And I seen Dull Knight or someone brought up like Resident Evil 5. I do want to. I don't want to censor the conversation, so I do want to make sure I bring something up. So like Resident Evil 5, I think it was rumored that they didn't want to do certain things with Resident Evil 5 because it's in Africa. That to me is just insane. Like, yes, you can have black zombies and you can kill black zombies in Africa. Like, sure. They went to like all these other areas of the world. Sure, you could go to Africa, kill zombies who happen to be black. You could go to I forgot where the other locations but Resident Evil, they've gone all over the world in a lot of their different locations. Like, I don't think that should be controversial at all, to have black zombies and you kill black zombies because they're in Africa.
Hold on. It's this question right here, Mike. I love you, brother. So I'm not going to like harp on you, Mike, in the chat at all, but I would like to have a conversation. So he says diversity is good, but the problem is overcorrection and force feeding narratives. And I'm confused on the force feeding narrative part because I don't see it. So if somebody could like holler at me on the force feeding narrative part, or force feeding some sort of political agenda, I would love to see. Unless you're talking about Wolfenstein where you kill Nazis, I don't care. Like, what? I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. If he's talking more so, because I'm trying to see from his lens, with force feeding narrative, when I hear those words, I think of, let's say, for example, like in God of War, when I just assume they did this in God of War because, like, they know people have short attention spans, so they're like, we just want you to beat this game and go back past this level, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna have Atreus tell you exactly where to go, how to solve the puzzle. Is that what you're talking about? Is that the force feeding narrative, or is it?
He
Is
just
there
said,
something?
look at The Last of Us Part 2 and all the narratives they try to force. I don't know what the narrative is. Like,
I don't know. I don't
think I know what he might be referring to.
What's that?
It's weird to me because, like, I've had gay people in my family, gay people in my friend circle, and I don't think much of it. I just look at people as being people.
Yeah.
And if similar characters wind up appearing in games, it doesn't bother me, especially if it's not a character that I created. Because, like, in games where you can create your own character, you can make them in your vision or a vision of whatever you want. When they're predetermined characters, you're basically playing out their story, but you get to make some of the decisions. So if there is some topics or subjects that make you uncomfortable, I understand, but it's not always like it's a forced thing, because if it's something that the original writer for the story envisioned this character to grow up like liking women as opposed to men or something like that traditionally, it is what it is. But the underlining story doesn't usually center just on that. It's usually that's part of the side conversation stuff or stuff that you'll come across. It's not, oh, it's only about focusing on being in a gay relationship. It's like, no, you're still killing people. You're still trying to hunt down somebody. But the side stuff, I get that some people get uncomfortable about it, but I don't feel that it's, too much of an overcorrection or too much of a force feeding. But I guess it all depends on your perspective. If your life only sees but so many variety of people or walks of life, I totally get that. And in some cases, I know some people are completely opposed to seeing that either in their TV shows and movies or games and so forth. But things exist if you know that game has stuff that makes you uncomfortable. And I can't imagine it takes you, well, then again, PlayStation does have a terrible refund policy.
Yes.
So it's like if you downloaded it, it's yours. So you're kind of stuck with it. Unless you have like a physical copy, then you could probably eBay it or something.
Like, you played it for 5 minutes?
Right. Yeah. Like a lot of them, if they're going to have that type of subject matter that's not what you want out of that game, or if it feels like it's getting to the point where it's making you uncomfortable, by all means refund it or return it. I totally understand that. I'm not usually in that mindset as far as doing things along those lines, but PlayStation unfortunately has a bit of a terrible refund policy. But if it's something that really you didn't want to support with your wallet, by all means, contact Sony. Let them know that you want to refund or return that game. And they should, based on the fact that you are the consumer, the consumer's always right, you should be able to get that refund. But I get what he's saying, but for me, and I'll just quickly go into this and why I brought this topic, because the thing I noticed trying to look at it from the outside and my experience in the business world, I was always, it has to be in-house, never use outside consulting. Now, I was in a totally different business. I was in the auto industry as far as web and automotive part sales and things along those lines. So it's a lot different. You don't have to worry about the diversity of your catalog per se. When your customer base is a certain demographic within a certain age range, the cover has to appeal to that demographic. So if most of your customers are age 35 to 55 and they're male and they drive a certain vehicle and you want to be appealing, well, what do those 35 to 55-year-olds like? Well, they like women that are probably half their age kind of thing on the cover, and the owner of the company is going to do what he wants, so it is what it is. But all of those things aside, we always try to hire within and work within and have a mix of people, because even though in the business world, I know I was one of probably 6 Black people in the company of 150, and I was like the only one in the front office. But I started in the warehouse and worked my way all the way through. And then we had a better mix as time went on, but it was always a thing where I know there were certain jokes said, and actually one of the other employees caught the owner saying one of those jokes, how he didn't sue him for the rights to the company. I'd never know. But all of that stuff aside, consultant groups, in like what Robert was saying, can be a good, set of eyes to see what you may be blind to. Like if we're working on a website for 3 months straight, we might have missed the fact that some of the secondary pictures aren't uploading properly because we're just flying through the pages, seeing that the primary image and the secondary image, it loads, but it doesn't expand or something like that. So having that consulting group might say, oh, well, looking at your numbers as far as how well this particular product. Now, usually I did a lot of this behind the scenes stuff, but it's like having that consulting group, being that extra set of eyes, letting us know that, while black wheels were more popular at this point in time, it looks like there's a bit more wheels that are selling in like the silver paint finish, and you may want to display some more of those on some of the vehicles to get a lot more attention or to see if that will help those move. And they just give you another fresh set of eyes on a situation. Now, I know towards me leaving, they were working on like, rewriting a lot of the stuff as opposed to just kind of anecdoting the stuff from the suppliers. But having that range of consulting definitely can help a company in almost any field. But I understand some people's gripes on some of the things because when and this is not a knock on anyone, but I always look at it as if there's been politics in almost every game you can think of, and I even had this conversation with my kids. It's like even Pac-Man, but it's like I'd probably have to smoke a couple of joints before I could really break it down on how the politics really play out in Pac-Man. But outside of that, usually you don't notice the politics in the game, especially when they are in line of what you agree with or what you believe in. So it's not as in your face or as noticeable. But when it's something that may contradict or something that either makes you uncomfortable or that you totally disagree with, you'll notice those things because it is in your face at that point. And I think sometimes, and as time progresses and companies become more progressive and stuff like that, if you're more traditional or old tradition, you will notice those things probably more so from either certain devs or certain publishers, certain mainstream publishers and things like that. And I get that, but you have to understand that these consultant companies aren't coming in and writing the whole story. Like 3-Bit said, they're additive in the sense that there was already basically a story, but they might be the ones that saying that, okay, well, if you're going to have a character that's closeted gay or something like that, our experience is that, certain mannerisms may not be the best thing to show that person's doing, because if they're closeted, they're going to be one way in front of their friends versus another way versus the out in public kind of thing. So, traditionally somebody might write a gay character in a story and it's like, oh, they're, mannerisms and everything don't change between that. But somebody that's aware of those things is going to tell them, hey, to their family, to their friends, they're this way. To the rest of the public, they might be this way. And that would be the only thing that they're really giving them that consulting on. Not to put the gay character in there, but some of the things that the gay character might do or how they may respond in certain situations. Or when it comes to black characters, and this is one of the things kind of like what Black Viking was saying earlier, I really hope we see more hairstyles and beard styles. And
no more Killmonger.
Yeah, I mean, like for the longest time, like I now just a little bit of backstory history. I had a box when I was much younger, and then I decided I was going to be different. Like around the time Bobby Brown had a Gumby, I had a Gumby. So it's like, you never see that in a game today. Like you might see a box, you're not going to see a Gumby. It just isn't going to happen. And then like around when Cisco was popular, before I met my wife, and it's part of the reason why I met my wife, I had straight blonde hair. Believe it or not, yes, I had straight blonde hair while in the military.
That's why it fell out, huh?
Yep. But like you would never find that, like, if you create a black character, you couldn't make the straight blonde hair or have like a Cisco kind of like swirl and stuff. So it's like,
Yeah, they never have waves in those games.
Yeah.
Like ever.
so
Yeah.
it's one of those things that I hope these consultant companies can convince them to do. Like, I look at Forza Horizon 5, and they've come a long way from Forza Horizon 2 to now as far as the character creator and the different things you have in it. But I still want beards. Like, I don't understand why. Like, I know they have like the add-on where you can put like a Santa beard on. Just allow us to have a character where we can actually put a beard or a goatee or a mustache or something. But maybe that's, Horizon 6 kind of thing. But I from what I've seen in marketing and in commercial automotive related stuff, more of these consultant groups are looking to give you pointers that you may not be noticing about your customer base. And it could be a matter of, I mean, I know, and I've always seen, some of the negative comments on YouTube videos and things like that, but it could be like, hey, have an interracial couple in this vehicle commercial. And I know some people are like, oh, that's heresy. I've been in an interracial relationship, married in an interracial relationship for it'll be 25 years this December. So yeah.
Oh, congrats, man.
So it's been a while, but it's like, if your demographic is a mixture of that, somebody from a consultant company might point that out to them if they didn't recognize that initially. So, and it's not to like force it in your face. Like, if a majority of your customer base or mixed families, or of not just your standard 35 to 55 Caucasian range or something like that, then that's where a consultant company might say, hey, just have, more representation in this ad or something to that effect. And I know that rubs some people the wrong way, but the bad actors at Sweet Baby are probably the biggest detriment to anything, because I think just like there are bad apples in any employment, like we've all seen the bad person or the bad guy at work. And if you haven't, you're probably the bad guy yourself. But in all honesty, the one that's either always late or falls asleep in the meetings, or the one that tells the wrong joke in front of the boss kind of thing. There's always bad apples.
Yep.
Them going on social media and trying to do that ban campaign was probably not the best decision that they could possibly make. Like, they're doing themselves no favors doing stuff like that. Like, if you're already in an industry where you're probably going to be targeted for some of the work that you're doing, the last thing you want to do is draw attention by doing a counterattack when it wasn't even something to do a counterattack for. And I think that's where the fervor kind of, balled up or swelled up even more, because they took the first shot. Essentially, I mean, yes, the other guy made a curated list, but it's a curated list, and there's tons of curated lists for everything from 30 frames per second to you can play as an animal and have bear sex or whatever, and there's curated lists for everything. So the fact that they have a curated list on it, if anything, they should have just either chalked it up as ignored it, or encouraged it, but definitely don't go and say, we need to get this person banned. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Just that's where I think any good that they may have done anywhere else went for naught for them doing stupid stuff like that. But that's just my 2 cents. And I'm sorry for rambling so much.
No. No, I appreciate your thoughts. It was well said. And I always think in the creative space where I wouldn't want anyone coming to my story and telling me exactly how to write something or anything like that. If I'm speaking from like a consumer standpoint, a lot of great stories do have politics in it. Matrix, all these great films and movies and games, they have politics in it. So when people say like, keep politics out of my games, I'm like, some of the greatest stories ever is a statement. In our society.
Star Wars.
X-Men is literally like Professor Xavier is what is he? He's
Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
And Magneto is Malcolm X.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, it is what it is. It's within our media, and it's just a matter of what we can accept. But I appreciate all you guys' thoughts on that. Like, again, I was like, should I bring this up, whatever? But no, I should never censor conversation. I think it's
I don't get to have any thoughts on it.
no, yeah, go ahead, man. Sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry,
I
forgot. I was so deep in the conversation. I was like, oh yeah. Anyways,
my opinion is not necessary here, everybody.
No, go ahead, Matt. What do you think
Nah,
about
I'm just messing with you, dude. Like overall, like, all right. So you're talking about just for example, NBA 2K earlier, playing my career so like for years, whenever I played my career, I can't make my guys look or sound like me. You know what I mean? No matter what, because they have like the one voice thing, and it's like a guy like from the city and stuff. And I was like, okay, I could have. Now I take myself out of that situation. What if that was like every game for me? You know what I mean? That's one game, but what if it was like every game? That would kind of suck, right? So that's where like, okay, having options and diversity and all those kind of things are important. Like I personally don't care about the NBA thing or whatever, like, but I could imagine not being represented in everything. You know what I mean? And how that would come across over time, it'd be like, well, what the hell, right? So then when you see companies start to like implement things more and stuff, it's like you could be, I like the way things were because like they represented me more, right? Or you could be like, hey, that's cool that other people are represented. Like I don't get upset about representation about different kinds of people, different kinds of culture, different kinds of lifestyles, anything like that. And I think personally, the more of that is just better for everybody. I have people in my family that are different in many ways, right? I have friends that are different in many ways. And for me, I'm never going to be with somebody like, hey, you don't deserve to be represented here properly. Like, and I don't get the sensitivity that people have towards that. Like when you see something and it's a story that bothers you personally because it's not your lifestyle, it's like, grow up a little bit. You know, that's just me personally. I'm like, other people have different lifestyles, and so other people want to tell certain stories. And I think some of the anger, like, is directed wrong towards the consultant firms in the first place, because like it's the decision of the writers and the developers and the companies making those games about wanting to tell a certain story. Yeah. It's the consultants that they're hiring to help them tell it more properly, right? I could imagine if I was like writing a game or trying to work on a game that I had a vision and I had an idea for characters and it was like black guys, or if it was like somebody from Asia, like a female from Asia or something like that, or if it was somebody that was gay, or like I don't understand the lifestyle. I don't understand the thought processes, the decisions, like a lot of the culture stuff that goes into a lot of the things, the way people are. I would need help. I would have to go get somebody to help my ass because I'm an ignorant dude that lives in Dallas, Texas, and I've lived my life around a bunch of ignorant people my whole life.
Yeah.
And that's just the reality of the situation. So like also the thought process that, hey, everything is political, everything is forced now. Man, you watch old movies, you watch old everything. This shit existed forever. Like you could go back and watch movies from the 60s, 70s, 80s. There's gay people in them. There's black people in them. There's Asian people in them. There's stories about politics, all of this stuff. It is in everything. And all of a sudden we like have this hyper focus. Oh, you can't have this in there because it's woke or because it's this or that. And it's like, explain yourself. And then when you ask for the specifics about what it is that bothers you, they never will say. They will never say. Because when they do say so, they realize they sound like either a homophobe or a racist or whatever. And that's just the reality of the situation. They will never give you the specifics of what it is that they felt was forced or that bothered. Everybody just have a little bit more of an open mind that other people exist in this fucking world and learn to live with them. And if other people's job is to help other people understand and bring that part to reality and for other people to accept and realize, how about you just look at it and be like, hey, okay, more than me just exists. More than my ideals just exist. Other people have different thoughts about the way that they should live. Other people have different feelings about the world. Other people have different cultures, different lifestyles, or from different places. And if we can make the less mistakes about those kind of things, it's better. Now, that doesn't necessarily excuse individuals that do bad things or say bad things that may represent some of those people that are their jobs is to do those things properly. And I think that's what the issue is here is we realize there's some assholes that work at one of these consultant firms, and they are also do some bad things themselves and say bad things themselves and don't necessarily represent what that's all about. So at the end of the day, it's like, well, it's a bad example of a company, but let's not like put the whole focus on the entire thing, right? Like,
right. Because it's changed from Sweetbaby Inc. as a bad consultant firm to like just DEI in general, right?
But that's been a thing for like years now, man. And it's like it's like all these movements and all these different things and stuff bring extra focus to certain scenarios, and people are like, well, can't implement this, or you like, oh, like look at this. There's like, oh, this character is Asian in this story, like he's never Asian before, you know what I mean, or like whatever, like, oh, it's so forced, you know. Come, I don't care, you know. I just tell a good story, tell it right. If you have better characters, it's better for me as an audience. My favorite episode of the Last of Us show was Bill and Frank episode.
Hell yeah, that shit was flames.
That episode should have been its own movie because the story was
cool,
so
because like they hinted to a lot
good.
of that stuff in the game, like their relationship and stuff, but in the show you actually get to kind of see it. So that was deep.
I don't know. I'm going a little bit off the deep end here, but like it's something that bothers me all the time, and like where I live too, it just honestly, it's all around me all the damn time. It family, friends, other people that live around where I am. It's like sometimes people just grow up, like just learn to live in a world where you can accept that other people exist.
Yep.
And if you can do that with the game, if you can't do that with a game, don't play it. The Suicide Squad example, right? That's like the stupidest thing ever. I like that game is like the darkest story, the most going off the like edge of like being not okay for some of the things that they're doing that we never even get in video games today.
Right.
They do some crazy shit in Suicide Squad. You're like, oh my God. And it's
yeah,
like
you can tell like who plays Suicide Squad and who doesn't, because
it's like the opposite of what a lot of these people complain about all the time, about being watered down, about being this and being that. And they give us that in Suicide Squad. And now, oh, but this company worked on some of the narrative. So it's one of those games. Go play the damn game and actually see what happens in the story. It is crazy, some of the stuff that happens in that game. And we never get to see a lot of that stuff these days, right? So when you ask, I think it's important for these people when they're talking about this stuff, stop talking about it in blanket scenarios. Stop talking about it in just like overall, well, you know, if you can't see it, then it's a you thing. You know, if you can't see it, it's your problem.
Yeah.
You just don't want to say what it is that bothers you.
See, this is another one. And again, I'm not trying to harp on the person here, right? Poison Maniac said, as long as the story is good and character is written well, I don't care. The problem with that line of thinking is that as long as it's homogeneous, then it could be bad. It could not be a good story, and the character doesn't have to be written well. But if you do include diversity, it has to be good, and the character has to be written well. Like, let's keep the same energy for everything. Yes, a good game, game should just be good, right? A game should just be good. You shouldn't care about there. Look at the Metacritic list of all the really bad games and tell me if there was any forced diversity in those games, but nobody's fucking talking about it, right? Like, we cannot have that line of thinking to where, like, yeah, you can include some black people, some gay people, some Asian people, some pink-haired women, ladies, some trans people, as long as it's fucking good, which is subjective, as long as it's good to me. as long as it meets my needs. We can't do that, man. Like people are going to listen. Game developers are, and same thing with Hollywood. They're progressive people most of the time. They are human beings. They're going to insert themselves and their ideologies and their ways of thinking into these stories in these games. Yes, there are gay developers. They will insert gay people that represents them. Like, are you to tell me like they're not allowed to? I, as a gay person, I'm not allowed because the gamer told me I'm not allowed to put myself in the game.
Right.
Right? Like, let's not do that. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not going towards you. It's just I've seen that written so many times. As long as the story is good and the characters written well, fine by me. Like, we don't get to decide that. You know what I mean? Like, there's bad games released every fucking day, but it only gets harped at if diversity is included.
Yeah. You guys are spitting. Good, you guys are spitting facts. That's for sure, man. It's like a line of thinking that people have, like a sort of mandate. Like, okay, I guess you can add a black person, but only if X, Y, and Z. It's a couple things. That's why I was saying Sweetbaby Inc. This whole thing, it branches off into different scenarios that people have issues with, and then you ask them what the issue is, they can't really pinpoint exactly what they're mad about. My whole thing is like, whatever perspective, wherever you're living, to me it's like boring just seeing just your experience constantly over and over. I like to see diverse perspectives, different points of views. It opens up my brain, my horizon. But
if you want to be a piece of shit, or if you want to be something where like you are open to other things, whatever, there's plenty of stuff out there still for you.
That too.
There is so much not diverse content out there, stuff that like you're gonna be completely fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's just like if you were sensitive and you can't see certain things, right? That's your personal choice, right? That's your personal thing. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and say you can't live whatever kind of life you want to live, right? If you're a racist, hey, you do you, bro, I guess. Like if you're a homophobe, hey, that you do you, I guess. Whatever, right? If you can't stand seeing anything ever about any of that kind of stuff, there is still plenty of things for you out there, right? Yes. And it's to go and like try and attack everything that isn't for you is kind of where I have issue with a lot of the people, because like they always oh, look at this, it's like they're infiltrating everything with my content, man. Just go back and look at the last 50 years of content that's just already been there. Like, nobody was talking about keep politics out of games when the original Call of Duty came out. Like, nobody was talking about that with the original like Metal Gear games and stuff like that. Like, back in the
Metal
day,
Gear is complete, like, very
like, there's so much politics and storytelling and movies and everything. It's because it's interesting, and usually games and movies and stories are a reflection on the world that we're living in today, and are representative of ideas and things that are going on in the culture of the world and the politics that we have going on right now. And you're always going to see that because people get inspired by things, right? People get inspired by world events. People get inspired by things that are interesting going on. People get inspired by things from the past, from historical events as well. And you're always going to see that stuff. And people get inspired by certain people and certain characters and their lifestyles and what they are all about. And if they want to make a character that's a certain way because they are interested in that person, or they think that that's interesting for their storytelling, and they do it, then you say it's forced. I can't partake in this. Like, come on. Yep. Really? Like, and then you're going to go out there and say that, oh, the companies aren't allowed to go out there and try and make that kind of content better. I don't know. I don't get it. Anyway, but Sweetbaby Inc., as far as themselves, I don't know everything that happened. I know there's some assholes supposedly that said some bad shit as well. Like that, and that's not okay either. You know what I mean? But like at the end of the day, it doesn't mean that like consulting firms are just inherently bad.
Yeah, people use what they say as
Yeah.
an attack on all consulting firms from every game development studio, even though it's been existing probably even before I was born. I don't know. Like it's been around for a long time. But now that's in the limelight, people are like, wait a minute, all these games are bad. Or maybe what they're doing is taking Sweet Baby's comments and they're like, oh, that means these list of games you can no longer play, or et cetera, et cetera.
3-bit. Mark
bro.
my words. Mark my words. Whenever another game comes out, and let's say it's highly anticipated, and it does 60, 70 Metacritic, somebody's going to look in the credits to see if any consulting firm worked on it.
From now on.
Regardless on how long they've been doing games for 20 years.
How long have consultant firms been in gaming too?
Forever.
For as long as I
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like,
and they'll call them Sweet Baby 2. Like, I swear to God, it's going to happen. Right? It's going to happen.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think the next big thing, BlackViking, maybe GTA 6. We'll see. That'll be the conversation where people will bring up this topic again.
Yeah.
I bet you. Just because GTA historically has been known to like surpass conversation and offend everybody.
Yeah.
Either black, white, it doesn't matter. They offend everybody. If they feel like if they feel like that game is dialed down
a bit.
Yeah, then they're
we'll
bring this back up.
I don't think Rockstar would do such a thing, to be honest. They transcend gaming in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? So they don't have to.
Well, I think for them, it's like it's also like a lot of ultra sensitivity out there too much at times. You know what I mean? Like, if people get so up, like comedians, I can imagine trying to be a comedian today.
Oh gosh,
like because like people get so overly upset about a lot of different things that we used to be able to make fun of each other about. You know what I mean? Like the more accepting you are of each other, like it seems like you can kind of poke fun at each other and like cultures and lifestyles and stuff like that. And like, hey, like we're all cool, right? We're just having fun, like pointing out stuff because it's kind of a little funny about different people or whatever, right? And like now it's like sometimes you tackle one of those subjects or something and it's like, oh my God, cancel them. You know, they don't deserve to exist. You know what I mean? Like, and so I think there's the other side to it, whereas like this world has just gone crazily overly sensitive. So that's led to them being more careful with how they present a lot of these stories and stuff these days. So there's part of that too. But ultimately, I just feel like if people just kind of relax and just kind of start to accept things a little bit more just in general, then like, everybody's just going to be cool, you know? Yeah. But like, it's so emotional, man. But about everything, if you include it, this is bad. You know, you don't include it as like, they're racist, you know, or they're like, you know, it's like, I couldn't imagine trying to be a creator and making something that's a mass product now that tells these kind of stories, and you can't make everybody happy.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just really hard. It's really hard to, because people are hyper focusing on all of these elements now, where people just used to accept things a little bit more for the story that was being told. You know, so it's interesting the way the world is. I think social media is probably a big part of it too. Like, it's helped people bandwagon attack things, whether it's good or bad, or promote things and all that kind of stuff as well. But people just chill out.
Yeah.
Everybody go back and watch Rush Hour and see how many racist jokes is in that
movie. I saw somebody in the chat saying like in Ghost of Tsushima, was there anything other than Asian people? It's like, okay, you're talking about a time in Asia when there literally was only actually Asian people.
Yeah.
Like, there was not other people even like allowed to be there. Right? So like, when you're talking about something like a fantasy made up continent that's based kind of on Europe, right? That's a world where lots of different kind of people lived for a very long time.
Yeah.
So you can't really put one and say the other. And plus, also, Ghost of Tsushima is supposed to be like more realistic to
Yeah.
that, right?
Mhm.
And you're not gonna get a lot of arguments. Like if you made a thing about Africa in like the a couple thousand years ago, right, or whatever, like you be weird if you just saw a bunch of Europeans walking around. You know what I mean? Like it would be more based on realism, right? So like it's just people got to understand the kind of product that's being made.
Yeah, like when I brought up the Final Fantasy thing, like in the title is Final Fantasy, like
exactly,
fantasy, you know,
right? Yeah, 100%. It's what is it? For Final, I don't know which continent 16 is on, but like for 7, it's like Ivalis, I think, right? Something like that. So it's like, yeah, that doesn't actually exist. You know, so they're like what the history is, we can completely make up and tell whatever kind of story we want, and have whatever kind of characters we want in it.
Yeah, and there was black people. If they're going to use that, there was black people in Europe around that.
Yes,
time.
100%.
So like, if you would still want to use that,
no, exactly.
But it is what it is. And then Razor Ultron says, okay, but how many people of color would be in Nordic countries for God of War Ragnarok?
Weren't they in Valhalla?
Yeah,
that'd be a question for Black Viking. Who's in Nordic? I don't know.
It's another made up place that they're not actually in, like Norway. Or,
and if you think about it, Odin is the All Father, so it's the birth of everyone, not just people in Norway.
Yeah, I mean they're you know Norse gods, so you can kind of do whatever you want. I mean, like I've dove into story creation for like Greek mythology and stuff. I have a book. Go read it. It's called Legacy 7. It's a Greek mythology book, and there's black people, there's Asian people, there's it's just it's whatever you really want to do. As a creator, I should never feel like stringent upon what other people want in my stories. I've like consultants help with like, let's say you wanted to add a character you're not really familiar with and you want it to be more realistic, you want it to be more relatable, then hey, that's where consultant firms are good. That's kind of what Fuzzy was kind of jumping in on, where like, hey, there's certain characters I want to write in here, but I would need like some help here. Like, what do you think about this perspective? If someone is blind, maybe they have more tendencies like in their acting of what they actually do when they're blind, as opposed to you just being like, oh, well, this blind person will act exactly like this. I know what a blind person, that's what consultant agencies, my experience is working in the gaming industry, has been for. It's just been an additive experience, not necessarily being like, oh, we need to have these check marks of making sure there's a black character, make sure there's a character with no legs, and adding these options that I haven't really seen it done like that. I'm sure maybe there is some, but for the most part, how I've seen it done is the writers write the story and they're like, oh, I want to add this, what do you guys think about these areas? So that's that's what it is. Go ahead. You want to
no, it's starting to get to the point, like somebody said, did y'all still play the Final Fantasy game though? I think alluding to like,
no,
it was still a good game, so you probably still finished it, so like whatever you're talking about like doesn't really matter. I'm starting to get the point, me personally, that if it's a fantasy land and there are no people of color within the game, that is a deliberate choice. It has to be. You're making these character models, you see all the skin tones probably in UE5 or whatever, and you deliberately choose not to add, as long if it has some sort of historical significance, okay, but like we're talking about fantasy games here, it is a deliberate choice not to have Hispanics or blacks or somebody who looks like that, at least within your game, because black people come in, I mean, not black people, but people come in all different colors, shapes, and sizes.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
What?
You can have lizard people and
we
cat people.
We need more dragons.
and dragon people and all that, but we're going to skip on the darker skin tones. That seems like a very deliberate choice to me, and I think
that's not realistic enough, Viking.
Yeah,
It's not. No, that makes no sense. Adding,
yeah, like it's crazy, and I think I'm actually going to start looking into those things, and before I make a consumer purchase.
Yeah,
Because
but it's hard when a game like Unicorn Overlord comes out, though, right? Like,
well, I didn't even know.
yeah,
I didn't know. You know what I mean? Like, but I should have known by the cover art. I was like,
Right.
well, maybe, like there's some,
yeah,
but
like it's some games only come like once around, like once in a blue moon, like, and it's like,
yeah,
but that's where the consultants kind of can't help,
yeah,
if they use that kind of stuff. But like, I don't know, and the whole thing about like, okay, yeah, games are art, right? Yeah, so that's the thing too, right? You don't want to force them to do things that they don't want to story wise, but they also got to realize like these are also like consumer products.
they are,
right?
and
So
all people buy your games.
yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? So
yeah, thanks.
yeah, it's kind of
It's different than somebody just taking a painting and like painting what they want. It's like you're doing this for a mass production for profit business that's you want to sell millions and millions of copies to tons of different kinds of people out there. And I think some of the decisions that some of these companies make should at times consider that aspect to it. You know what I mean? That not to say they have to make every game a certain way because of that, but like when it's an option and you choose to ignore it, you know what I mean? That's when it comes a little bit more, like to your point, a little bit more glaring. Right?
Yeah. Right.
Yep.
It would have been easy for them to include.
Yeah. That's what I was saying when that whole Final Fantasy thing came out, and they were basically like, yeah, but we're trying to tell a story that's rooted in reality. What was the quote?
Yeah.
And I'm like, bro, name of the game is Final Fantasy.
Yeah, like what detriment would it have done? What detriment would that have done to the game, to the story, to anything?
Not much.
You know what I mean? No, I can't point to anything.
And hey, maybe again, I didn't play the game. So like some people were saying like, oh, maybe they didn't put black people in it because it does have a story about like slavery and stuff in there, and I'm like, they just wanted to avoid that controversy. I'm like, okay, well,
but there was two sides to it, right?
I didn't play it, so I don't know.
The strength to Final Fantasy 16 is in the storytelling for me, like over the gameplay, but there's nothing about the story that I have seen that would make it to where you can't include like people of different cultures and stuff,
Yeah, for sure. But I was just like, bro, it's in the name. It's called Final Fantasy. Figure it out. Figure it out away. All right, great conversation, y'all. The final topic for me is just like, it's just a fun small one. Something Fuzzy brought to the conversation. The importance of like having photo modes in games at launch. Hellblade 2 is gonna they basically release some different photos for that game. Man, it looks friggin' beautiful. And I know Sony they made it like a mandate for a lot of their games to have photo modes for Horizon, Last of Us. People always like take really good pictures and stuff of their characters. They even do this thing with a lot of Sony games where they take the characters and then they make like popular GIFs. That's right. I said GIFs instead of GIFs. It's actually GIFs in my opinion. I'm the GIF man. Like peanut butter. You get your peanut butter for your images, and you put it in an image. Yeah, so like they basically make like popular GIFs for their characters and stuff like that. Not using the photo mode, but do you guys think that photo modes should be in more games? What do you guys think about like Hellblade 2? You guys excited for that game? It's coming out pretty soon, right? It's like May, I believe. And then the last thing I'll point to that is, do you guys care about physical games? 'Cause that was a big conversation around Hellblade 2, physical media. So I'm gonna tie all those conversations and drop it on somebody. Mav, what do you think about all that?
I like photo modes. I don't use them as much as I should, but I do tend to kind of dabble in them a little bit. But what I love most about photo modes, honestly, is not my own personal use. It's seeing other people's art and stuff that they make out of the photo modes in the games, right? So, the more photo modes in games, the better for me. Especially on gorgeous looking games like Hellblade. I saw those shots, and my immediate thought was of Pong because he loves using the photo modes in games, and he just like when a good game comes out and it has a photo mode, like he just keeps making posts of like screenshots of like of stuff, and it's really cool to see like other people's playthroughs, what they take photos of on their experiences. So I I think going deeper and even adding more features, more cool things with photo modes is something they should do because it kind of like highlights and respects the artistic side of the game, right? So that's anyway, short and sweet. That's what I like.
Facts. What about you, Black Viking?
For me personally, like I really don't care for photo mode. But if I was the head of a studio, every single game will have photo mode because that is one of your best marketing tools.
Yes.
Online. Any game, like when a game comes out, people go into photo mode and you have you have a lot of very artistic people that go in there and make that game pop, and then other people see it and they're like, what game is it? Even if it doesn't look like this, because people conflate, like people think photo mode because in some games they up the resolutions and stuff like that, and a lot of tricks that you can do to make the game look completely different than what it does while you're playing in game, right? And people would look at that and be like, I need to go get this game. Like it's one of the best marketing tools you can have for a game, opposed to just showing gameplay. With Spider-Man, you probably saw it 4-1 photo mode and gameplay. Really, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Same thing with Final Fantasy, right? Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth, you rarely see anybody showing gameplay of that game unless it's a cutscene. Otherwise, it's in photo mode and they're taking really snazzy photos in game, or whatever. Great marketing thing.
Yeah, for sure.
People.
And
Forza should have GT7's photo mode, right?
Yeah.
Like the escapes mode, whatever they have.
Mhm.
Like people say, like, oh, people just are always comparing the screenshots from that to Forza. Well, yeah, because it's freaking awesome in GT7. Like it is. I mean, like you can make some really cool looking stuff in that game, and I wish Forza had that. And if Forza had that, you would see people comparing that to GT7. But like Forza doesn't have it. It's one of the things I wish it had. You know, it'd be really cool. We shouldn't punish a game or like slight them for like having something that's awesome to use because something else doesn't. You know, like I think that's the best way that they do market Gran Turismo. Also, because like, man, you get those shots out there and like how real it looks, and you know it's like a fake backdrop, even, but like the cars are put there. You can kind of manipulate the cars and turn them however you want. You can apply the smoke to the back tires, and you know, like you can kind of change the blur on the image of the car to kind of give it that feeling of movement and stuff. And it's like, oh, dude, it's so freaking awesome. And just you can just sit there and play around with that for hours because you're admiring the cars that you have, right? That you've built up, that you worked on, that you painted, you put new body kit on, you know, like, hey, this is my drift car. I'm going to make a cool drift photo with this thing. And it's like, I love that stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I started a war in the comments of GIF versus GIF. Listen, man.
The creator said GIF.
Creator said
what
GIF.
it is.
All right.
He just liked peanut butter too much.
And
man.
then
GIF.
I want to read some of these to our audio listeners and stuff. I think it's freaking hilarious. We got Mr. Waffle saying 3-bit gives out GIFs but not gifts. And then we have the Sousa saying, how do you say especially 3-bit with an X? Listen, guys. It's clearly GIFs, and if you think it's GIFs, you've been taught wrong. Okay? I'm just saying. It's GIFs.
What's the word that you say wrong all the time? Oh my god, what is it?
Almonds.
Oh, almonds. Yeah, you say it's almonds. You say almonds. Oh, and then you say what is a game when it's exclusive? It has exclusive.
Oh, I say what do I say? I say exclusivity.
Yeah.
Exclusive.
Exclusivity, right? Exclusivity, right?
Yeah. I said that in one of my videos like 5 times, and then I rendered it, and I'm like, dang, it's too.
I always notice that, like, and I say words probably wrong all the time too. Like, I know when I listen to like Living Split Screen, I listen to Pong and Steel. Like, Steel always says this is a non-console eccentric podcast, and it's like it should be centric. Right, but it's eccentric, right? It's like, hey, not console eccentric, but still kind of works, right?
Paul says this one word. I can't think of it, but he says one word really funny. I always want to tease him about it.
Roof. He says rough.
Rough.
Yeah, rough. Yeah.
And Amit Kumar says graphics. Good graphics. Oh man, you guys are playing around. All right, Fuzzy, close us out. What do you think about photo mode and video games? And also, what do you think about like physical media as well? We should touch upon it a little bit.
All right. So photo mode, I totally agree with what Black Viking said. It's your best marketing that you can do for the game. And I probably don't do it enough. Like I've kind of slacked off a bit. I know when both PlayStation and Xbox had the integration with Twitter or X or whatever, it was a lot easier. I mean, you can still kind of just do it from the app and upload it, but the one step directly from the console made it so much easier. It's like, oh yeah, let me show this car doing a smoky burnout, and oh, it's on Twitter now, and go from there. But yeah, it's definitely an important feature. Yes, I prefer gameplay overall, but there are times where something looks cool, like perfect example, whether it's GT7 or actually more so Forza Horizon, because you'll have like day and night changes, and you might be driving towards a sunset type of thing, and it's like you're near water, and it's like, oh yeah, this would be a perfect picture. Let me just hit up on the D-pad, bring it to photo mode, take the picture, and now you can even take the driver out of the car and everything and stuff. So yeah, photo mode is awesome. But it's something that I feel every game should have at launch type of deal. Like that's your best way. Like after your advertising dollars are spent, it's the best way for your consumer to continue advertising your product. Not that I should care about the advertising aspect, but man, I like looking at some of those photos, like GT7, the Scapes thing. Mm-hmm. That's the one thing like he said, I wish Forza had as well, where there were like these fake scenarios or scenes or backdrops. Basically, just think of it as like a movie set at different locations around the world, whether it's, in a major city, like downtown Tokyo at night with all the lights and stuff. You can put your car in the center there, and it has the reflections from the lights or what would be in that scene if it was really there, and it shows on the car, and you can have the car do a burnout, have the smoke going, and you can even add like the extra dirt if you want, or the extra rubber that would be built up on the stuff. Yeah. So it's like, all of these features are awesome to look at, and a lot of times they wind up being a wallpaper for my PC or a wallpaper for my phone. So yeah, photo modes are awesome to have. Glad to see Hellblade 2 is going to have that at launch. Hellblade 1 was a pretty looking game, especially after they went back in and upgraded or did some sort of update for it for the series consoles and things like that. And yeah, I'm looking forward to Hellblade 2's photo mode. I'm looking to get back into Starfield when the DLC drops. I got tons of photos there that
I haven't me too. Yet, I ran out of space actually. Starfield.
But that game looked awesome. Like there is nothing you can describe any better than the photos where you're on a moon looking at a planet with a ring around it or some sort of rings around it, and it's in the distance, and you might see another spaceship taking off or landing off to the side, and it's like just like a perfect landscape, and you got like the nebulous type of stuff around in the background around the stars, and yeah, it's just an awesome game to take photos in as well. But
For sure.
now on the physical copy side, I think since 2016, I've been 99.9% digital. I think the last physical games I bought, funny enough, were PlayStation games. I bought Spider-Man 2018, God of War 2018, and was it Gran Turismo Sport, because it had like a buy two get one free, and they were like $30 each or something like that. So I was like, oh, 3 for 60? Yeah, I can do that. And that was years ago. That was the
Holy
last
shit!
physical
You said 2016?
No, this was the 2016 was the last physical copies I bought other than 3 for PlayStation. But those 3
Okay.
were like late 2018, like around the holidays of 2018, I think.
Got you.
Where
Yeah,
there was
the last game that I bought physical was Overwatch 1, and that was 2016. so something must have happened then to where it was like all digital for some reason. But 2016 was the last time I bought any physical besides Nintendo. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. For me, the one in 2016 that did it for me was the Division, because the big thing that, you know, when you have kids and they had, well, I have twin boys, and they had to share their console. Now they have their own consoles, they have their own PCs. But back then, when they were little guys, they had to share their own console. And buying physical copies, you can't game share. So it's like, I got to buy two $60 copies, and me being the Division stand I was back then, and them wanting to be Division stands as well, it's like, that means I got to buy 2 $100 copies so they get all the same DLC that I get. You know, it's like, or I could get it digitally and they get everything shareable, because that will be their console, will be my home console. And then when I log into the one in my room, I don't have to worry about it. So at that point, Game Share made it so I never wanted to buy physical again, especially if it was a game that I was going to get that the boys were going to play, because then that means I got to buy twice the amount of discs for that. But yeah, I'm for physical. I'm for digital more so than physical. Like I made a joke before this generation started. I was like, Holiday 24 is going to probably be the end of physical, and I'm not too far off, because like physical is already like, it's not in your Best Buy anymore. It's not in your Target anymore. It's not at your Walmart anymore. So it's only a matter of time before every physical game that you want, if you're still going for physical copies, is going to have to be limited run type of thing at some point.
Yeah.
And I know Phil promised that he would still do digital, but he said he's also going to, you know, he's going to keep in mind what the market does. Well, the market's been 80-90% here in the States for a long time.
Yeah.
Like I want to say since 2019, it's been over 80% in the US for digital. So
yeah, go ahead.
It is crazy. Like I went to Walmart the other day, and I went to the game section, and like there's no physical games for like Xbox there. And I'm not sure. I didn't look at the other sections, but like they have the digital cards, right? Still, but like they were all just like laying, like there was like hundreds of them, and they're all just like laying flat on this like display thing, and they're just all like all over the place, man. So it was crazy, dude. I'm like, I don't want to like, I don't want that to be the world. Like, hopefully they figured out a way to organize those things a little bit. I think we're gonna see more and more of those physical cards for all the individual games more for a while. That's gonna, because it takes up less space. They can still have it at physical retail for people, so they can see and stuff like that. And we've been seeing those increase more, I think, over the last several years. But man, these retailers, they got to figure out how to display those things properly, bro. Because I would not, if I had went to Walmart looking to buy one of those the other day, I would have just walked away. It's probably like, it's probably our gross Walmart, because it was like, it was crazy. Like I would have had to sit there for like an hour probably looking for a specific game.
So is there a reason why someone would pick one of those physical cards over just going to their store in the
gifts
on their platform? Gifts.
Okay. Gift card. Also, let's say you have a gift card to Walmart or something like that, or like, you know, there's could be different scenarios.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah. You're right about that. Yep. Yeah. Giveaways. Yep. All that kind of shit.
That was the last time I gave a gift card to somebody for games and stuff like that. Mr. Waffles in the comments said you got to get some pro physical media people in here to give a different perspective, because we know everyone here is all digital.
No, we're not going to be diverse about that. We're going to
I mean-
just.
It's just
Like,
it is what it is.
Isn't it
It's
just
just-
a license on most of these games anyway? Yeah, you still have to
Yeah.
download it from the internet because you can't hold Call of
Even the
Duty's
games that are
300
physical.
gigabytes.
Yeah.
So what
Yeah.
their chat is saying, you need to hire SweetBabyInc 3 bits ahead to have more of an inclusive thought process on the panel to give the further thoughts about physical, more positive outlook. Right? We got to make sure
I mean,
that they're represented.
I'm sure they're out there.
Yeah. So I think this will because this has bothered me about digital games, physical too, right? When you buy let's say you go to the store and you buy the 4K Ultra HD version of Interstellar. Is there only a particular DVD player you can play that on?
It's just the Interstellar DVD player. That's it.
That's it, right?
Yeah, you have to buy only the specific Interstellar DVD player.
Right. But
No, I don't know.
That's it.
but it plays in every DVD player,
Right.
Yeah.
right? No matter if Sony makes it or whatever company makes it, right? And the same thing goes with most digital stuff too. Like I can buy from the Apple digital store, but I know the Apple store is fucking everywhere. Same with the Microsoft stores everywhere. You have Movies Anywhere, right?
Mhm.
Where you can combine all of it to one, and then you have all your movies that you bought in various
love it.
places, right? That's probably the route we're going to go down here in the next 15, 20 years if regulators get off their ass, to where when we buy licensed digital media, we should be able to play that shit wherever the fuck we want to, as long as the computing power is
That's
there.
the one thing about digital media that needs to, I don't know, there needs to be something where you feel like you can still own it. Like PlayStation did this thing, they were about to wipe all your movies, and I don't know if that still happened.
That sounds like something they do.
I remember that was like news for like 5 seconds because people protect Sony, but they were like, let's wipe out your entire library because we don't want to pay for licensing fees or whatever.
the Discovery
have
shit,
you.
right?
Yeah, I think it was Discovery.
Yeah.
It was a while ago.
Discovery,
But
yeah.
there needs to be
Yeah,
better
WB
protection.
gave them a 30-month extension. It was originally supposed
okay.
to be for 3 years, and because Sony was like, yeah, we don't feel like paying it, they had to eventually go back to the table because of everything that was kicked up about it. And then WB was like, instead of 36 months, it's 30 months now. Take them apples.
It's just like, goodness. I really feel like the one thing with the Xbox One that was doing really well was when you were able to basically let your friends borrow your games and things like that. Like that was pretty cool, and I feel like it was headed in a direction where you start to feel like you own a little bit of your digital media, but people weren't ready for it back in the day. With the Xbox One launch, like, you always have to be online. What do you mean? Now we're always online anyways. So that's I'm all digital, like all the way. I don't like getting up. I know it sounds lazy, but I don't like
it
getting...
doesn't sound lazy. I hate that shit.
I do not like getting up, putting in a disc, and then because I flip flop in games. I know Mav definitely does too. You just flip flop to different games.
Yeah.
You just like, I want to play this. And I don't really want to play this anymore. I want to play this. I'm like, I want to play. You know, that's the thing that Game Pass gives me, is a little bit of a OCD, just trying to figure out what game I want to play and how much time I got. But I just don't want to get up, put in disc in, take it out, sit back down. I don't know. Just call it lazy, call it whatever you want.
But it doesn't make any practical sense either, 3-bit, because there's the read speed on a disc is only so it's going to be from the SSD anyway, right? Because you have to download the game.
Well, the games don't fit on the disc anymore anyway. Also,
Yeah.
right? So like
what the fuck's the point?
yeah, it's just a digital license. It's just verifying you own the product or own the rights to use it. Like the biggest benefit for me for digital, and the reason I'm more pro digital than physical, is because physical media changes, right? Like, and it always has. We've been stuck on disc for a while, but even then, like the original PlayStation used like regular CDs, and then it moved to like Blu-rays or I mean DVDs, and then it moved to like Blu-rays, and then now Like even at Microsoft tried to use UHD for a
Yeah.
while and all that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. Like Nintendo uses cartridges and they've kept switching different kinds of cartridges for years. But like if you own a digital product, like the way it should be, and like regulators need to make sure that this is always the case, but Microsoft specifically does a good job of this. Or they have, because you can play Xbox games, Xbox 360, Xbox One, and Xbox Series S and X games on your Series X and X. Like,
Yeah.
what it should be like is whenever you buy something and then you own the future version of that platform, you should automatically, whatever is accessible to that ecosystem, have access to all of those games, right? In the future. And digital kind of protects you in that regard, whereas like physical is more limited because there's no guarantee that the future is going to have a physical disc changer, or even if it did, would be the same kind of media or the same kind of format, right? So like digital for me is more about a forward compatible thing. It's also, I am a lazy piece of shit too, so I don't want to get off my ass. I used to like dream of like, it'd be amazing if consoles had disc changers in them, so I don't have to get up and change disc. You know? Like that would be, that's what I used to think the world would turn into, right? But like, no, instead it's even better. Like we can just download our games, right, and do it that way. So, but like all your apps do on your phone, they should all games should just keep carrying forward with you, and playing on the future devices, and also with the benefit of potential improvements on the software.
Yeah, and physical discs again are just licenses to digital, so it's like okay. and Steel put in the chat. He said, "Shout out to Steel." Said, "Why have a binder of CDs for the whip played off your phone?" Yeah, just imagine like nowadays, like instead of Spotify or Apple Music, you're just like, all right, time to play my next.
Man, you know what happened? When I was a teenager, dude, I had a huge freaking CD case. I had like hundreds of CDs in it. I got stolen at a party, right?
Someone stole your mixtape?
Not one mixtape. They stole my whole case. But this is before you don't understand, because you were
I made mixtapes.
I did too. But did you like back in the day? We used to
CDs and stuff.
We used to buy all of our like disc, or like we would like subscribe to like what was it BMG or like the different things like that, where you get like 12 discs for like $5, something like that. I can't remember.
Columbia House.
Yeah, Columbia House. Yeah, but we would get like amass like hundreds of CDs and stuff, and like we'd have these huge cases in our car, that would just like you flip through, you have all these CDs, and I freaking got one stolen at a party, bro. Yeah, it was like life destroying, man. It was bad, but that can't happen with digital.
Yeah, can't happen with digital. I will always be team digital. I see these people out here like my physical media is gone. I'm like, yes, it is. Sorry, I don't know. I don't have
not my floppy disk. Not my floppy disk.
But again,
and dinosaurs are dead. Also, yeah.
Like I get it. Like you guys like to have your physical thing, but it's just like I don't know. So to me, it's still nice to have. Right, for the people who want to have it, but to me, I don't even remember when the last physical game I bought was. Honestly, I can't even think of what it was. Like I legit can't even think about the last physical game I bought. So, but props to the people who still buy the physical games, and that's why like when you see those physical game sales, like. People out there like, look, PlayStation is beating Xbox in these physical, like, bro, no one's really buying physical games anymore as much as they used to.
Oh, something else that's awesome about the digitals is like the sales and the storefronts. Like you get like every week there's a new one, and it, like you go through and like these older games or whatever, like $3, $5, for like games that were great, and like you would have to try and seek those out. Physical wise, like a lot would go to specific retailers and all that, but like this is you just be patient and just look at the store fronts every like other week or whatever. You're gonna find amazing deals on games.
Titanfall 2
crazy library.
Titanfall 2 was $199 on Steam.
Oh my gosh! Someone had a Steam question, and sorry I didn't get to it. You guys are killing it in chat. Someone had a Steam question, like, what Steam games are you guys looking forward to? I can't remember what it was, but put it down in the comments. We'll be sure to answer that. But we're gonna get you guys out of here. first off, thank you guys, everybody in the chat for participating and in our conversations, and we always appreciate that. And I appreciate to the special guests right here on the Pixelated Echoes. We got Black Viking and Mav. Black Viking, to you, sir. Tell us where people can find you on social media, and tell us what you got going on.
Yeah, man, I'm on Twitter at the Black Viking 3. And also I run a podcast called The Longhouse gaming podcast, and that is on Tuesdays and Thursdays every week at 8 p.m. Eastern. We have a good time, man. It's pretty much kind of like this, you know what I'm saying? Just chatting it up, laughing, making some jokes. It's all good. Yeah. Yeah, I have you on soon, don't I, 3-bit?
Yeah, I'll be on
this Thursday, right?
This Thursday.
Hell yeah. So yeah, I'll have you and Randall Thor on at the same time. So yeah, that'll be the man with the million, as everybody says. So yeah, man, that shit would be cool. But yeah, y'all catch me on there. Yeah, that's all I got, man. And thank you guys. Thank you, you and Fuzzy, for having me on. Yeah, it was great. I had a good time.
Yeah, appreciate you for coming on, man. It was nice to have you, and again, this was a fun conversation, so I appreciate you coming on by.
It was. And 3-bit, let me never shy away from conversations, man. As long as you get your facts, or don't know, even if you just kind of don't know, just have a adult conversation. We have to have these kind of nuanced conversations within gaming, because I've seen so many people make like 5 straight videos on the topic, and all they're doing is fucking raging and farting out the mouth on the microphone. I was like, dude, like, have people on, have like good conversations about this shit. You know what I mean? If you disagree, ask questions. You know what I mean? Like, get to know your fellow man a little bit better. Like to Mike and to, I think, God, what was the other guy's name? Something. Like, I'm not mad at, I'm not upset or anything like that. I like to have these kind of conversations. I would have been better if you was on my show and I bring you on and we could talk in person. But yeah, man, let's have these conversations, man. It's Gucci. So yeah, 3-bit, never shy away from conversations. It's your show. Yeah. And if people leave because of your opinion, did you want them there anyway?
Truth and facts.
You know what I mean?
Truth and facts. Yeah, we need to have more of those conversations for sure. I think my barrier comes from just being a Black creator in a space where I'm generally not accepted in like these, I'm in rooms with these people who basically like, oh, you're Black,
Yeah. Listen, 3-bit,
all
we
this
all
stuff,
seen,
but yes.
We've seen the photo. Y'all remember the photo that Phil took with Ybarra at the Blizzard thing? Looked like it was snowing out there, right? We all see these photos.
See one Black person. Yeah.
We all see these photos, and we know that it's not a very diverse set of people that create video games. So we need more people like you in the industry, even like Black content creators. Like, we need more voices.
We need conversations like this, what we have with like the SWEETBABYINC, where we can just talk, not have a filter, and just come from our own perspectives, for sure. Like, I'm really glad we did have that conversation, because I've actually been pushing on. I'm like, oh, should I? But no, I appreciate that, Black Viking. Mav, where can people find you, good sir?
I just want to say thanks for having this old ignorant white guy on your show, 3-bit. It's absolutely a pleasure to be. No, man. For real, bro. Love you. I love Fuzzy. You guys are like brothers to me. It's great to hang out with Black Viking on a podcast for the first time, man. And it's great discussions, great conversations. Chat was super active tonight and engaged in the conversations, which is always awesome as well. But it's always a pleasure to be here with you, man, and thanks for having me. But if you want to find what we got going on, check us out on Fun Speculation on YouTube. Mondays we got FSP, just Fun Speculation podcast. We got Thursdays PM and the PM with Kong Soul and I at 7 p.m. Eastern time, and then Friday nights Xbox Ultimate podcast at 10 p.m. Eastern time as well. Appreciate you. Talos says, "Hey, Mav, you took up smoking." No, I stopped smoking. I started doing this stuff instead to help stop smoking. That's why I'm giving.
Thank you.
Anyway,
all right, that's it, Fuzz. We did it. Tell us where people can find you and close us out, man.
Oh, this was an awesome show tonight. Always love having Mav on here, and it was awesome to have the Black Viking on tonight as well. Awesome conversation. No, might have been a little uncomfortable for some, but in the grand scheme of things, I think us having the conversation and not making it where it's like we're yelling down people's throats and they're not yelling into the ether or something like that, I think helps us either grow or at least hopefully opens our eyes to other perspectives on things. And that's always a good thing to kind of take away from the conversation. But always love the people in the chat. Thank you so much for checking us out. We greatly appreciate you taking the time to interact with us. If you haven't already, hit the like, hit the subscribe button, or if you haven't already, we greatly appreciate it. For those that want to hear my rambles and rants on anything gaming related and maybe see some gameplay and some photo mode stuff, just follow me on the app formerly known as Twitter at fuzzy_Belvedere. You can also find me on FSP tomorrow night, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Mav's channel, Funspeculation Network. Then you can also find me on Breakfast with Boom 10 a.m. on Double Barrel Gaming on Friday morning on Mr. Boomstick XL's channel. And then later that evening, Xbox Ultimate on Funspeculation Network at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then the Shop Podcast on PTK Blam's channel, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with Pong and PTK. And then right back here with me and 3-Bit for Pixelated Echoes between 8:30 p.m. Sunday. I'll look forward to seeing you guys there. Thanks again.
Yeah. Appreciate everyone here. If you guys agreed with us or not, let us know in the comment section down below, as I say in every show. So don't forget to subscribe. Love y'all. Pixelated Echoes, and we are out. Appreciate y'all. Bye.
Black Viking.